we're gonna do Ashley.
This guy's been.
And then we're just gonna move for good work with Hyatt up to the first action item. So that, yeah, we don't have to wait. Well, we do a whole bunch of, we do a whole bunch
Things wasn't in there. I think I'll just tell Frank after the meeting. Yeah. And then remember we talked about art as a whole, the community art. Yeah. It still has art sculptures. Yeah. And I'm like, it's just would get transferred to stamp to change it or something. Yeah. You know. Yeah. So I think I'm just gonna tell him tomorrow. Yeah. Because we already voted. That's right. Yeah. Right, yeah. I gotta go. I noticed it over the weekend, and I forgot to write it down in my notes and talk to Frank for tonight, but I'll get back to this is the boat thing. Yeah, I get all messed up when you move everything around. Start with different people and all that. Yeah. Stipend's not here, so.
Clerk's office generates those if they have them.
You check his desk? You sure? He should have them right on his desk somewhere. No, family member emergency, kind of thing. He's okay.
Kind of lonesome. Is this down here for one of us to do?
I think that goes to Frank. We're not doing it. I mean, unless you want to. I probably could figure it out if you wanted me to.
Is this here for one of us to manage?
Yeah.
So say if not, I'll do it.
Alright, that's 6. But let's pause for a minute. There we go.
Yeah, Stephen's gonna have comment cards. Thanks, Stephen. Thank you. right, it is 6:04. We will call the meeting of the Township Board, or the Charter Township of Meridian to order. We'll seek a motion for Supervisor Pro Tem at this time. Anyone like to make a motion and second it? Courtney?
I'll make a motion to appoint Trustee Osmer as Supervisor Pro Tem. Support.
Seconded by Trustee Jackson. Do we have to take an individual
Take the
vote?
roll.
I'll
Yep.
take the roll. Trustee Wazinski?
Yes.
Treasurer DeShane?
Yes.
Trustee Opsmer?
Yes.
Clerk Guthrie votes yes. Trustee Jackson?
Yes.
And Trustee Sunland?
Yes.
All right, motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you, Clerk Guthrie, and if everybody could just join us in rising to recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, and I just want to say that Supervisor Stajka extends his regards and is saddened that he couldn't be with us this evening, but we look forward to him returning to us in February. And this evening, we are going to start with a roll call. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Trustee Sunland?
Here.
Trustee Jackson?
Yes, I'm here.
Clerk Guthrie is here. Supervisor Pro Tem Opsmer?
Here.
Treasurer DeShane?
Present.
And Trustee Wazinski?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Clerk Guthrie, and I am now going to ask that we go on to item 8, which is approval of the agenda, as we do have staff who needs to depart us this evening. I would like to propose that we approve the agenda with a couple of changes. First, we will take up item number 12D after approval of the agenda, and we will move Woodward Way Pilot, item 12J, to the top of the action items for the evening. Is there a motion? Treasurer DeShane.
I move the approval of the agenda as amended by Trustee
Opsmer. We're good.
Opsmer. Thank you.
Is there a second to the motion?
Support.
All right, supported by Trustee Jackson. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Trustee Wazinski?
Yes.
Trustee Sunland?
Yes.
Supervisor Pro Tem Opsmer?
Yes.
Trustee Jackson?
Yes.
Treasurer DeShane?
Yes.
And Clerk Guthrie votes yes.
All right, we have an agenda, and we are now going to move on to agenda item 12D, which is the poverty exemption guidelines. So this was actually an item that I put on the board agenda, and I brought this to Supervisor Stajka, Manager Walsh, and our staff. We've had one meeting and a number of discussions on the item. And I'm wondering if anybody would like to read the motion in the board packet before we get into discussion. Trustee Jackson.
Motion. I move to approve the 2022 income and asset limits for 100% and 50% poverty exemptions as follows. Households with income and assets at or below 1.35 times the federal guidelines are eligible for a 100% exemption. Households with income or assets above 1.35 times the federal guidelines, but with income and assets at or below 1.85 times the federal guidelines are eligible for a 50% exemptions.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Trustee Wazinski. And I'll just give a little bit more intro to the item, and then I'll ask staff and our Assessor Winstead if she has anything to add. But the proposal before us tonight is the one that we discussed at our previous meeting. It is a pared down proposal from the original one that we discussed. It's in line with some of the communities in Washtenaw that we explored at the original meeting, but doesn't go to the extent that some of those communities go to for their multiplier on the federal guideline. And of course, basically, we're expanding out from the 1.35 multiplier that we currently apply and raising it by 0.5 to 1.85 and offering a 50% exemption to that new eligible, the newly eligible households in the township under that expansion. I will now turn it over to Assessor Winstead. Do you have anything that you would like to share with the board or any additional insights?
No, I really don't at this time. I think we answered a few questions last time. I just wanted to join you today in case you had any questions for me.
Questions from board members? I'm not seeing anything. Okay. Well, thank you for joining us this evening. Clerk Guthrie, would you like to call the roll?
Thank you. I appreciate you moving the agenda around.
Absolutely. Happy to accommodate.
All right, trustee Sullivan. Yes. Trustee Opsimer, Supervisor Pro Tem Opsimer.
Yes.
Trustee Jackson.
Yes.
Treasurer DeShane.
Yes.
Clerk Guthrie votes yes. Trustee Wazensky.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you, Clerk Guthrie. And we are now moving on to presentations. We have one this evening, presentation 4A. And Deputy Manager Perry is here to give us an overview of the 2022 Township Local Road Program. This is year 3 of the 10-year program. Deputy Manager Perry, the floor is yours.
Good evening, and thank you very much. Let's get this pulled up. Anyone else feel a little rusty at doing this? It seems like it's been a while since we're here. Yes. Appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight about the local road program. As Trustee Opsimer noted, this would be year 3 of the program, of a 10-year program, so that's pretty exciting. What we'll do is we'll provide a short little recap of last year, 2021, and then talk about what we're hoping to do in 2022. As background, again, you've probably heard me say this many times, but Meridian Township doesn't own any roads. The roads within the township are owned either by the Michigan Department of Transportation, which is Grand River and Saginaw, or Ingham County. That includes all of our major roads and the local roads, even the ones in the neighborhoods. And that's why on snowy days like today and yesterday, if you look at the orange trucks that drive through the neighborhoods, they have Ingham County on the side of them. How are roads funded in Michigan? Public Act 51 is that funding mechanism for roads. And once again, the state of Michigan gets money for their highway system. Counties get money for the county system, including townships, and then cities and villages get money for their road systems, which means Meridian Township receives $0 from the state of Michigan. What we do receive from the county totals about $172,000. It's been that way for several years. We do hope with the additional increases to the Act 51 formula that eventually it'll trickle down to the county and they'll make that capital outlay pie a little bit larger. What you'll find is the county really through the Act 51 program is in some ways hand-tied to work on their primary road systems, which again, it has the most vehicles, so I guess it does make sense in that regard. You're putting more dollars to where more people are traveling. But a project that would fall under that would have been the Hagedorn resurfacing project that occurred last year. So if you run on Hagedorn Road, that was a program that another township wasn't ready for a project, and we kind of jumped ahead. So all of Hagedorn from Mount Hope all the way north now is completely resurfaced. So good program there, and glad we were able to capture those dollars here in Meridian. But again, on an annual basis, they're able to provide about $170,000 to our local road program. From that, the general fund has historically always moved some money to the local road program. The township has done that for many years, even when we had a dedicated quarter mill prior to the road bond program. So we've always tried to put as many dollars as possible into that local road network just because of the sheer number of miles that exist. And then, of course, several years ago, the voters said, you know what, we're ready for our own program, and they overwhelmingly approved that voter road bond program, and that generates about $3.5 million per year that we're able to allocate towards the local road system. So what is the network that we focus on? It's that 147 miles of local roads. It's actually gone up a little bit over the last years as new development occurs, that inventory grows. Can be a good thing and a bad thing, right? Your network grows, but that means you have more assets to take care of. We do have a 10-year plan, and that actually was emphasized during the local road bond program in order to solicit a good response. And again, I think that 10-year plan really is what the voters found important to them and the reason they supported that program. Our goal is a PASER rating of 8. That's the pavement surface rating. And an 8 would be a good. So a 1 essentially is a road that has failed. And we have those roads in the network. Over time, we will eliminate those. And then a 10 is a new road, a newly resurfaced road. And again, our goal is 8. The program is not meant to touch every mile of road in the township. Again, it looks at the entire system on an annual basis and says we're trying to move that needle. We're trying to move the overall average of the network from, again, that 4.48 all the way to that 8 over 10 years. And again, we utilize asset management, so when we are selecting programs, we're working with the county to say, hey, are you doing a project in the area that makes sense that we would, put some projects together, leverage some dollars. We're looking at our underground utility systems. And then also we try to coordinate as best we can with like Consumers Energy and their gas programs. So. And there should be a slide that shows up here. Like slide 3, where did 4 go? It's showing me in my little window clip.
That's actually me on my side.
This, we'll try, okay, so this is showing in the web. Okay, well, what I'm trying to demonstrate here is that PASER progress. So again, back in 2019, our system was rated at a 4.48. In 2020, our goal was to get to a 4.83 based on what we figured we needed to get over 10 years to get to an 8. We were able to eclipse that at a little over 5. Again, the 2021 program, when we successfully complete that, we're actually anticipating a 5.68 PASER rating, which is above where we had set our goal. And then the 2022 goal is 5.75 PASER rating. So. Yeah, I'm not sure where the rest of my slides went. So in 2021, the review basically, can you guys see that at all? Or where do you see it?
It's in the Zoom, so go to the Zoom.
Okay.
The Zoom may be messing with the PDF.
Okay, maybe that's why they're not talking. But for the 2021 review, we had 8.87 miles of resurfacing. We did not complete 4 roads in the White Hills neighborhood. Those will be completed first thing in the spring. The contractor is aware of those and ready to go. And then we have 9.11 miles of preservation work. So essentially just under 18 miles total for our 2021 program. Did you advance it? Okay, all right. Because I'm like, I didn't touch anything with that one. So again, for the 2021 review, this is actually Lagoon Street, and as you can see, there are some ditches there. They're not as prevalent as what's been done after the project. And I guess the reason I raised that up is one of the lessons learned in our 2021 program was to set clear expectations, especially when we're doing a road project that perhaps changes the profile of the drainage ditches in a neighborhood. The neighbors have been essentially dealing with these types of ditches in their neighborhood for probably over a decade. Again, they really have not been maintained by the Ames County Road Department. So when we went in and renovated the street to protect the street, provide proper drainage, it definitely was a drastic change to them. So again, with all programs, there's always lessons to be learned. And any streets now that we do with any significant ditching, we know we're going to have to basically spend some additional education with our residents, so we set those clear expectations up front. So again, that's probably the biggest lesson learned, I would say, from the 2021 program. Go ahead, Stephen. Yeah, it doesn't want me to do anything.
It's uploading.
Okay. So again, transition now to what we're anticipating doing next year. This is just some pictures actually of the mill as it's out there actually grinding up that asphalt, and then what a street looks like when it's totally exposed. Go ahead, Steve. Yeah, I know some of these pictures can be pretty hard on the graphics. So our plan next year for the resurfacing work is just under 7 miles at 6.84 miles. And most importantly, this is what the people want to know. What streets have been selected, have been identified for work next year. Again, we say that it's not a 100% done deal. Obviously, we're right now doing the survey work, the engineering work, and it has to be bid out. And hopefully we have a good bid climate and we're able to do all these streets, but you have to start somewhere, and this is our list that we've selected so far. So I think there's close to 35 different streets that we're going to be touching in the 22. And again, we'll be publishing this. I know Brandy and her communications team is ready to move with some press releases next, actually probably tomorrow. And then preservation is important too. We've talked a lot about this, that we need to preserve the network that's in fair to good shape. Otherwise, we're just going to be in this continual cycle where we're just, trying to chase these failing streets. So we're going to try to ramp that up again incrementally over the next several years of the program. So in 2022, we identified just under 4 miles of Cape Seal, which is that microchipped, and then you actually do a sealant over it. So it's not like the chip seal that you see that's not real popular. It is a great preservation treatment for roads, but the Cape Seal is a little different in that there's a little binder that's put on top of it, so it looks more like a traditional asphalt paved street. But again, we've identified a couple different neighborhoods that we're going to try that treatment in next year too. This is a map and you're not going to be able to read, but again, it basically takes those streets that we've identified and then puts them graphically on the township map. And again, it just kind of shows the overall distribution in the community for the 2022 program. Again, it makes more sense when it's online for the public to look at. Good, Stephen. So the plan summary again, rehab, resurfacing 6.84 miles, preservation, the Cape Seal work 3.7 mile, for a total of 10.58 miles worth of road work. And again, our goal is a PASER rating at the end of all that work of about 5.75. I think we'll actually come in a little better than that, but that is what our goal is for 2022. And then I just want to leave you with the schedule. Survey, that's ongoing. The design is ongoing. In fact, if you're in one of those neighborhoods that we've identified, we've already gotten a few calls. Why is there some flags in my neighborhood? What's the painting going on? That kind of thing. That's the survey crews out there putting that together. The plan is to bid late February with construction starting really as soon as the plant opens, but we always say May as far as the target date, and then substantial completion end of September. So that is our target. One thing I will say, this is the third year of the program, which means for the next upcoming 3 years, one of the projects for 2022 is actually to pursue that second bucket of money for the local road program, those actual bond dollars that we use over the next 3 years. So that will be occurring too in 2022. So. That's it. I will entertain any questions if you have any. Otherwise, we will be putting this out on the website and doing some press releases and social media and all that. So I'm sure people will be excited. And then again, we'll start our letters to the neighborhoods once we have received bids and we know which streets we're definitely going to be doing. We'll start that communication with the residents. And typically we have a couple different letters that go out. We do try to drive them back to the website for day-to-day updates. Somewhat successful with that, but we continue to do that because that's really the only way that we can provide, up to speed updates. Letters just don't travel fast enough for the program. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Manager Perry. Questions from board members? Treasurer DeShane?
Thank you. Excellent presentation and excellent first 2 years of the program. I think we've met our goals that we set out for. We've got 8 more years to go, but the first 2 have been, by all accounts, a substantive success. A couple of questions. One is, did the Tacoma Hills punch list of work get completed that had been brought before the board, and some of us went out and visited there as well?
Those items have been completed. Now there probably will be a few homes, in the spring with restoration that we'll have to revisit those. That's just always the case with any of these projects. We had a few snowbirds too, so once they return, we'll revisit their ditch lines to make sure that they're satisfied with those. Again, they're steeper than what they have dealt with historically, and there may be some that want to have them, some additional modifications made to them, that kind of thing. So once the growing season occurs again, I wouldn't be surprised if we have some additional contacts with them.
And just because we're done with the road work, it doesn't mean we won't go back and work with the homeowner who has an issue. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Restoration is always the biggest challenge with any of these types of projects, whether it be a road project or a utility project. It just is. Again, people, it's their front yard. They take pride and ownership in that, rightfully so. It's just sometimes, depending on the season, how hot it is, or that restoration, that reestablishment of that seed, sometimes it just takes several attempts to do that. And we just continue to work with those property owners and to make it right.
Right. Second question, have you factored into the 22 plan inflation? In November, inflation national rate was 7%, and obviously it's impacting things that we buy and that our residents buy. In particular, if we heard from any contractors about rate increases that have already kicked in?
The contractors haven't necessarily specified any additional rate increases. The proof will be once we start, getting these bids back. We weren't anticipating things of, 8, 9, 10% increases. So hopefully things will, flatten out here a little bit. But when we do our estimates, we're always very, very actually conservative with the amount of miles that we think that we're going to accomplish. So we honestly, I would rather be able to come to the board and say we have the ability to do maybe an extra half mile versus provide you a list that's just, not realistic kind of thing. But again, until we really get those numbers, it's tough to determine.
Good, thank you.
All right, thank you, Treasurer DeShane. Trustee Jackson.
Mr. Perry, I note you recognized it and noted lessons learned. In general, though, would you say we are ahead of our planned schedule in terms of the number of miles rehabilitated, or on schedule or behind schedule?
I think we're on target. I would say if you look at our PASER ratings, we're doing a good job of almost staying ahead of that, the goal that we've set out in regards to that. You always worry, especially on a decade-long program, right? What happens in year 8? Do we have a bunch of failures that are unexpected? So it really, I think the annual revisiting of the program is pretty critical. And then as we move towards that end of the 10 years, we have to have that discussion that, again, these systems are not static. They need dollars every year, and we have to have that conversation. How are we going to pay for our road improvements once we get close to years 8, 9, and 10? What is the plan? And again, I know we've talked a little bit about this, that hopefully those long-term pension liabilities will be absolved, and we'll have basically some bandwidth in the general fund, and we can reallocate those dollars to the local road system. Because again, it's not a static system. You got to keep feeding the beast.
Go ahead, Trustee Jackson.
And to that point, in the overall plan, we have factored in maintaining even new roads, providing timely and appropriate maintenance for even new roads, so that by the time we get to the end of our 10 years, the average of whatever has come into the system, the average, including whatever has come into the system, comes out to be 8. Is that correct?
Right. The intent of the program was at the end of that 10-year cycle, where we had that huge infusion of that $3.5 million, that the system would be at a rating of an 8, to where we could then back off. You wouldn't need to invest $3.5–4 million into the system itself, but you may be looking at $2–2.5 million kind of things to keep that system, so you didn't slide backwards. But again, you really need to do those calculations on an annual basis to see where your system's at. You know, again, in 7 years, who knows what the township will look like, how many new developments will have occurred, if any, you know, and how has that impacted the system overall.
Thank you.
And maybe Act 51 comes through, right? And all of a sudden we're just flush with cash, and the county's saying, here's $1 million each year.
Right.
I'm not going to hold my breath, but you never know.
Nobody should hold their breath on that one. Clerk Guthrie.
Thank you. Most of my questions were asked. I just have a few questions. What would you say are most of the complaints that you receive? Is it about the road itself, or is it basically where the road meets the yard and there's a lot of improvement in that area?
The biggest complaint typically is that interface between the public right-of-way and the individual's yard, right? And the change to the driveway. Sometimes, you know, it's an inconvenience, and you know, some of the complaints are just based on having that inconvenience in place. The actual reality of how long construction occurs. You know, this is a program that occurs for the entire construction season, and sometimes the expectation is, hey, why? You know, they show up for a few days, then they're gone, you know, doing another portion of the project, then they're back for a few days. Next thing you know, they're in front of their home, you know, for several months, and it leads to some of that frustration. But that's just how some of the things are basically timed and how they move throughout the entire, you know, the entire project area township-wide. So that creates some frustrations. And again, we try to communicate that best we can. But if it's been 3 weeks and you're looking at, you know, your front yard dug up, it's frustrating, and we get that. So we ask for a lot of grace and patience during these projects, and promise that when it's all said and done, you'll be happy with it, and you'll have, you know, a great new road in front of your home that'll help increase your property values.
And who do they contact? Is it the DPW email address when people have questions?
Yeah, what we do is we always direct them to the DPW at meridian.mi.us, and that's kind of our general email for all of our public works related projects. That goes to several of us, so it's monitored by several of us, so it's not one person that may be out for a week's vacation. Everyone's keeping an eye on that, and then of course just our general information line too. And then we just coordinate those questions internally, and we do use an outside engineering firm for design and inspection. That's Manick & Smith. They do a lot of that interface for us, sometimes with the public too. Door hangers, that kind of thing.
Thank you.
All right, other questions from the board? Not seeing anything? Okay. Thank you, Deputy Manager Perry, for the enlightening presentation. We look forward to the 2022 program.
Should be a great year. Thank you very much. We appreciate your support, and thank you, Stephen. I appreciate the help with the IT stuff. Thank you.
All right, that concludes item number 4 on our agenda. We are now on to item number 5, public comment. And we do have one member of the public wishing to speak, Mr. Craig Patterson. Mr. Patterson, if you could just please give us your name and address, and then go ahead and proceed. You have 3 minutes for public comment.
Craig Patterson, 115 North Huron, Mackinac City. I'm here to greet the board again and thank you for everything you've done to support Woodward Way. Later, I'd like to talk about a pilot extension, which is absolutely critical for the future of the project. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Patterson, and we will certainly have you speak on that item when we get to it. We are now on to item number 6, the Township Manager Report, and Manager Walsh will make his way to the podium.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Just a few things for the board this evening. Our annual deer call that was supported by 81% of our voters in a recent survey. We are up to 265, 128 through archery, 137 through firearm. We only have 63 to go to reach all of our tags that are provided by the DNR. I want to compliment, people don't realize the amount of work that goes into this program and the extra effort that goes into it. I want to compliment Director Maisner and her team, and also Chief Plog on his team. They do great work with that. Black History Month next month, we're working on planning some type of event. It's been brought up eloquently by our staff that let's not just celebrate Black History Month, let's celebrate not only our history, but our current achievements and also future achievements, because we know they'll be there. So that's an approach we're taking. We're trying to come up, it's difficult to come up with an event in the era that we find ourselves, but we're working on it. Prime Meridian Magazine, it's been a while, but the new edition of the Prime Meridian Magazine will be out in the next 4 to 6 weeks through the communications department. This past week, Director Maisner and myself met with the Okemos School Superintendent John Hood in reference to the senior center. With the upcoming potential millage, what's the future of the senior center? It's critical to the community, and we want some commitments now rather than after the millage. So that's something that we're working on. I think we had a good meeting and a good discussion. More to come on that. This week, our staff and committee, led by Director Tioff, had a DEI training through Michigan State University. It was a good hour, a good use of our time. Some board members, the committee members were able to participate in that. As Deputy Manager Perry mentioned, it's an important time for us. We're going to be bonding for year 4, 5, and 6. It's really important, that we work with Treasury and we work with a lot of folks on this bonding, because it's a big deal as what rate comes in and what we pay. The annual report will be out February 1st, roughly, focusing on 2021's accomplishments, and you can expect it to be presented to you at your next board meeting, which is the 15th of February. Director Clark's making some good work up at the Hazlitt Village Square. Director Schmidt is assisting her, working with a potential developer out of Holland for the additional, I think it's 19 acres. Several projects that are underway. The Sparrow project, Trader Joe's, we hope we're going to see some demolition in the coming months of those buildings on Grand River. Joe's on Jolly, Buddy's Pizza, and phase 3 of the elevation down at Jolly and Okemos. We've had some concerns, complaints about the new ice arena that we've had. If you go out there, if you use the ice, you don't glide you don't glide really at all, but you don't glide as much as we'd hoped you would. And Director Maisner's taken a lead on that of trying to find a fix, and has worked with the contractor that put in the Kiwanis ice arena, and that special potion was placed on the ice last week, and we're hoping for a better outcome of the ice arena. I want to congratulate Delta Township, LEAP in the state of Michigan on the announcement for the GM plant. That's a huge announcement for the region, the state of Michigan. Trustee Herring Jackson, thank you for your work on LEAP. Everyone that's involved with that deserves a big congratulations. But the most important thing I want to say for last this evening, and that is Thursday's a big day for us in this township, and we should acknowledge and appreciate the work of Stephen Givas. Stephen is a resident, a Hazlitt High School graduate, a graduate of the University of Michigan, and on Thursday will mark, people stay about 18 months in a job nowadays. Stephen marks 30 years of service to the township on Thursday, and we're going to have a little mask muffin get together in here on Thursday to recognize that. So I want to publicly thank Stephen for his work. So thank you. They don't come any more dedicated than Mr. Givas. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Manager Walsh. And now we are on to item number 7, which is board member reports of activities and announcements. Who would like to go first? And everybody raise your hand at once. Clerk Guthrie and then Treasurer Duchesne.
Okay. Thank you. Today I attended a webinar put on by the Bureau of Elections in the state of Michigan on election security risks. There was an overview on ransomware and an overview not only just on cybersecurity, but physical and operational security as well, and misinformation and disinformation, and how we can better prepare ourselves on Election Day for security. And I briefly spoke with the township manager about this earlier today. It's something that we'll be meeting with a little bit. We kind of touched on it during the goal session about some things we were doing in the clerk's office for security, but I'll continue those discussions with the manager to make sure that our election workers are safe and secure and all that. So, but I can keep you posted. But I really want to make sure that everyone knows that we're, that voting information is secure. That we do have secure elections. We receive a lot of calls in our office and emails asking about voter information. And we don't have voter information. It's on the state qualified voter database. And so I want to assure people, and Stephen, today was a great day for me to have that cybersecurity discussion, especially with the manager announcing that you've been here for 30 years because you do an excellent job securing the information here at the township. So I want to thank you for that. I really appreciate that. So we'll just be looking at our role that we play in assessing our risk management here at the township and our polling locations and our voting records. Last night I attended the Okemos School Board meeting. I think some of you may remember that it was on the mascot selection committee, and they announced to the school board that their new mascot is the Wolves, and they will be going before the school board seeking approval for that in their February meeting. And I did speak with Superintendent John Hood, asking if he could come during a board meeting, even maybe during public comment, and just kind of make a comment and talk about that to the board. Last week, I attended the Friends of Okemos Library meeting. They have an upcoming book sale on March 5th through the 6th. Their sales have been down, probably because of COVID, so they are looking to sell more books, and they're figuring out ways to do that. They are always looking for donations. They accept books, CDs, and DVDs. So if you have them, let me know. I can help you figure out where to take them, or just contact their friends of, contact the Okemos Library. And then lastly, I'm also on the Meridian Conservation Corps, and they do have an event this Saturday on January 29th at Ted Black Woods. And the information is on the township website if anybody wants to get involved.
Thank you, Clerk Guthrie, and I would just note that with Okemos Public Schools, we do want to thank the Native American Heritage Fund for their support on the grant that they provided to Okemos to go through this. It's very costly to replace all of your signage and all of your apparels and everything else that you collect throughout the years.
They received $250,000, and it's around $400,000 or $500,000.
Yep. And if there's any other school districts or entities out there watching, they could apply to the Native American Heritage Fund as well if they have similar needs. Treasurer Duchesne, your report.
Thank you. Because of COVID and the holidays, we have not had most of our usual township commissions and other boards meet since our last meeting, December 14th. However, we did hold a Capillary Treasurers Association training for our treasury staff and those of other county treasurers in Mason on January 13th and 14th, and it was very excellent, particularly as we have a new deputy treasurer here in Meridian Township. And I also want to mention that yesterday, with Trustee Jackson and Clerk Guthrie and the M team, we did attend the DEI training that Manager Walsh mentioned, the second round put on by MSU. Again, very valuable, very helpful for the entire team. That's my report.
Excellent. Thank you, Treasurer DeShane. Trustee Wazinski.
Thank you, Supervisor Pro Tem. Couple reports. Unfortunately, I could not make the Groundwater Management Board meeting last month, but I'll attend this month. Environmental Commission, let you know that National Wetland Day is February 2nd, 22. We've been working with Miss Yates in our communications department to come up with a wetland education campaign, and we're happy to say the kickoff was today, so you'll start seeing some social media information on how to protect the wetlands in the community. Also, the request for proposal for green grants was issued yesterday for local schools and communities. That's $10,000 to grant, or I'm sorry, $10,000 will depend on how many proposals we get, but it can be used for things like planting native plants or trees, wetland buffers, protection, national shorelines, food composting, alternative energy, and many different things. So encourage anybody to apply. Just a reminder that Hazlitt Middle School had implemented an outdoor learning lab in a wasted kind of space in the common area of the school. So that turned out fantastic. And Radmore Montessori School had constructed the Pathway to Discovery, which was also an outdoor learning area for the kids there. Last but not least, the Environmental Commission is working on their 5-year review of the Climate Sustainability Plan and update, and we'll begin that work real soon. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Wazinski. Any other board members with reports and announcements? Clerk Guthrie.
I'm sorry, I forgot. I also attended the
Go
park.
ahead.
I also attended the Park Commission meeting, and I was very impressed with the passion and the dedication of our park commissioners and the 5-year plan and the wetland restoration plan that was included with the parks master plan. So I was just very impressed, with the people that we have serving our community.
I will just give a brief update on one issue pending at the state level that is impacting all of our boards and commissions in the township, which is the Open Meetings Act and whether or not it will be amended in some way, shape, or form that allows for virtual and remote participation after the December 31st expiration. Brief recap with that is that there was both case law and there was an Attorney General opinion which allowed for virtual and remote participation. We didn't really exercise that on this body within the township, but there was that ability prior to the pandemic. And then, of course, when the legislature went in and amended the law to make it a little bit more express and clear that you could meet virtually and remotely during the pandemic, they changed that language to which the case law and the AG opinion pertain to. And so now, after December 31st, you can only participate remotely or virtually if you're on active military duty. There's a number of bills pending before the legislature. Some pertain to specific public bodies. One would extend virtual and remote till March 31st, and another would allow deliberation remotely, but not voting. And MML, MTA, and MAC, and the School Board Association all continue to work on trying to get one of those bills to a hearing, but at this juncture, there still has not been a hearing in the House or the Senate on those bills. So the one point of optimism I guess I would convey is that the House did have to cancel session due to a rising COVID and historic COVID numbers last week. And if that continues, that would be something that might put pressure on the House to give some more flexibility to local units of governments and school boards. One other thing I would just note, if our township attorneys want to take another look at the issue, committees in the House are operating under a broader interpretation. I don't necessarily agree with it, but an interpretation that you could participate and deliberate virtually but not vote. And I know there's some other local units doing that, but I think there's some latitude or some privileges being taken in reaching that legal opinion, but just something that I would flag for Manager Walsh and our council if they revisit the issue. All right, any other items under board member reports? Seeing none, we are now on to agenda item number 9, the consent agenda. It consists of communications, minutes from the December 11th and December 14th meetings, our bills that need approval, the MDOT M43 water main replacement contract, the Greater Lansing Area Regional Stormwater Agreement renewal, the 6013 Greenman Lot 10 Oak Grove Heights, and the ratification of a new police officer appointment. Chief, we're not doing anything on this appointment this evening, correct? We're approving it, but we don't have anybody here this evening, right?
No, typically after they swear in, we bring them to the board.
Thank you. Do we have a motion for the consent agenda? Trustee Jackson.
Move approval of the consent agenda.
Thank you. Seconded by Treasurer DeShane. All right, and we need a record roll call vote. Clerk Guthrie.
All right, Supervisor Pro Tem Opsmer,
Yes.
Trustee Jackson,
Yes.
Treasurer DeShane,
Yes.
Clerk Guthrie votes yes, Trustee Wazinski,
Yes.
Trustee Sunland.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you, Clerk Guthrie. And we are now on to item number 10, questions for the attorney. Our attorney is not present tonight. We also do not have any hearings under item 11, so we're on to our action items. And as we approved on the agenda, we are going to take up item number 12J, the Woodward Way pilot first. We do have a motion in the packet if someone would like to make the motion prior to its introduction from Director Schmidt. Trustee Wazinski.
Attached resolution that the following ballot language be placed, I'm not on the right one. It's going on the ballot?
It's page 101.
Motion to adopt the resolution to grant tax exempt status with payment in lieu of taxes pilot for the housing project known as Woodward Way.
Is there a second? Seconded by Trustee Jackson. All right. And Mr. Schmidt, would you like to introduce this item?
Yeah, so briefly, this is something that the Township Board has previously reviewed a couple of times. When the project originally came up, one of the items that is typically part of any financing package and scoring package at the state and federal level for affordable housing project is payment in lieu of taxes. This is essentially the mechanism that local governments have to help subsidize these projects to make them happen in their community. And so this was originally approved in 2019, extended in 2020. Obviously, due to COVID and a variety of other issues, construction didn't get underway until late in 2021. So we do need to reauthorize this and move forward with it. Nothing has substantively changed. This is still a 49-unit project. Still has the same capital stack through MISTA and private financing. The pilot is essentially a requirement to happen. At this point, it is a 15-year request at a 5%. There will also be a municipal services payment in addition to that, which is authorized under the state law. Craig Patterson with Woda Cooper Companies is here this evening to speak about it further, but I can tell you they're well underway. We have started doing inspections on the project and look forward to getting this project done in 2022.
Excellent. Thank you, Director Schmidt. Mr. Patterson, did you want to share any additional information with the board?
Just want to thank you again. If you've been out on the site, you know we poured footers. Site was challenging when we did our geos. Originally, we found some stuff. Then we did more geos and we found more stuff. And so we had to change the site plan, and that's part of the delay as well. Our compliance period for a pilot is 15 years. It's mandatory. But as I remember, this pilot was approved for 45 years. It's a 5% pilot. And as you remember, there's a $9,000 per year MSA that was approved by this board. Most of you are on the board, and I want to thank you again for all the support.
Thank you, Mr. Patterson. We appreciate it. Any discussion among board members? Trustee Jackson and then Treasurer DeShane.
I would just ask anyone who can answer it, what is the expected completion time?
Oh, great question. He said it was a great question, too. We got started, we closed on our equity the last week of December. Wait, no, we closed the first week in January. But fortunately, because we had permits, we got started a little earlier. Our goal is to be complete as long as we keep your building inspector happy. As long as this man is happy, we hope to have our final CFO by the time Santa comes at the end of the year. So it's a really quick to market project. Generally, it takes 14 months for us to complete a project like this, but we're already well underway.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Treasurer DeShane, did you have questions?
Just wanted to provide a little bit of context for the pilot, and those that weren't at our first discussion. A pilot is payment in lieu of taxes, where the township board agrees to take a significant lower payment from the property because the property meets a larger goal. For us, that goal is a more diverse housing stock, and in particular, affordable housing for families. We currently have 3 other pilots, Stratford Place next to it, Marsh Point, and also Grange Acres. Those 3 are all tax credit properties that are geared towards senior housing, age 62 and higher. So this is unique in that this Woodward Way is not only for the seniors, it's really aimed at family housing. That's affordable family housing is a real need in this township. So the board 2 years ago was enthusiastic about this, voted, I believe, 6-1 in favor of it, and I hope the board will again tonight. This is a good thing for Meridian Township. This will be an excellent project and to provide affordable, top quality housing in Meridian Township.
Thank you, Treasurer DeShane. Other comments or questions from board members? Trustee Wazinski.
More of a comment. I just want to thank you for your perseverance through COVID, through, poor geo results, and this is it's an absolutely necessary project. We're very excited and really appreciate you.
Well, I appreciate that, and I want to say Mark helped us along the way and other staff. Tim really jumped on board quickly. When we had to change this site plan, there was a lot of work. One of the things that you may have heard, I'm building a cul-de-sac at the end of Sur Hall. Now, the county said we need a cul-de-sac, and it took us months to negotiate. Finally, we put it on our site, and it's 150 feet in diameter. It's a really big one. So you'll see that being built over the next few months. So thank you for that comment.
Yep, thank you.
And this item actually, this project actually came back to the Zoning Board of Appeals due to that cul-de-sac, and the ZBA gave approval, I want to say like 2.5 months ago or 3 months ago now. It was a little while ago, but yeah, some of the units got stacked, so the county kind of clustered the development a little bit more as a result of their requirement for the cul-de-sac. Other questions or comments from board members? Not seeing anything. I will just quickly echo in the excitement. I'm very excited. I think this project is going to attract a lot of pupils. It's in the Okemos school system. It's affordable. This is a great way for families that are starting out and maybe not able to buy into the Okemos housing market yet to get in there. So very excited to see tax credit housing without the age restriction here, and I think the location is perfect. I mean, you're right on the Route 1, and you couldn't be further from a food desert. So this is exactly where this type of housing should go in an ideal world, and it's great to actually see a project go in such an ideal fashion. So thank you, Mr. Patterson, and to your entire team. And thank you to Director Schmidt for helping to expedite changes and changing circumstances. All right, we now need a roll call vote on the question before us.
Treasurer DeShane?
Yes.
Clerk Guthrie votes yes. Trustee Wazinski?
Yes.
Trustee Sunland? Yes. Supervisor Pro Tem Opsimer?
Yes.
And Trustee Jackson?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you, Clerk Guthrie. We are now on to action item 12A, which is the appointment of a Supervisor Pro Tem for the calendar year 2022. Supervisor Stika prepared the memo with the help of staff that's in our packet, and there is a motion with a blank for us to deliberate on and to arrive at a consensus. Would anyone like to make a motion? Treasurer DeShane.
Thank you. First of all, I'll be making this motion. It comes from Supervisor Stika, and if he were here, I'm certain he would be making it himself. I move that the board appoint through December 31st, 2022, trustee Patricia Herring Jackson to act as supervisor pro tem at any meeting of the township board wherein the supervisor is absent.
Second.
Seconded by trustee Wazinski. Any discussion on the motion to appoint trustee Patricia Herring Jackson to supervisor pro tem for 2022? Treasurer DeShane.
Yes, I would. Trustee Jackson has already served as supervisor pro tem for 2 years. And of all of our board members, there is no board member that is at more meetings and more involved in the day-to-day operations of the township than trustee Jackson. We have a new trustee office, and I'm not sure, but I think Patricia Jackson is getting her mail there. She is there so much. She's here quite a bit, and we see a lot of her. She has asked good questions and really has her finger on the pulse of the township, and I'm very confident she'll make an excellent supervisor pro tem.
Thank you, Treasurer DeShane. And trustee Wazinski.
I would echo everything the treasurer said, and that I think this is an excellent choice for our board, and very excited for your new or old position.
I will comment and thank you all for those kind words and the appointment. I will try my best to be the best possible supervisor pro tem for the year. Thank you.
Thank you, trustee Jackson, and congratulations. And we look forward to having you take over the gavel when that time comes. All right, we need a record roll call vote on the motion.
Clerk Guthrie votes yes. Trustee Wazinski?
Yes.
Trustee Sudlin?
Yes.
Pro Tem Supervisor Opsimer?
Yes.
Trustee Jackson?
Yes.
And Treasurer DeShane?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
All right, thank you, Clerk Guthrie, and we are now on to action item number 12B, the Township Manager's Performance Review. We do have a motion in the packet. Would anyone like to make the motion? Trustee Wazinski.
Sorry, I was trying to find it.
Wanted to make you sweat, Frank.
I'm sorry, Frank. You let me use your computer and everything. Move to approve the 2021 Township Manager's Performance Review as presented. The review document shall be forwarded to the Human Resources Office for proper filing.
Supported by trustee Jackson. All right, it's moved and seconded. I think the report goes into great detail about the service that Manager Welsh has provided to the township and the conclusion that the board draws. Does anybody have any comments that they'd like to share on this item? Treasurer DeShane.
I will say that this was the 5th performance review of the manager that I was part of, and like the previous 4, it was an easy review to do because the manager's evaluation by all board members reached the highest level of 5, excellent in all categories. It doesn't mean that the supervisor didn't take some feedback from us on ways that things could be possibly done different and take input from the board, but overall the board expressed its very, very high level of satisfaction with the excellent work being done by the manager. And this document reflects those comments and the input from the board. I've said before, the most important thing this board does is hire a manager. Everything else that this board does is funneled through the manager. And so if we don't have the right person in place, the board's goals and aspirations and hopes for the township will not be fulfilled. But we are meeting our goals. We are getting things done. The township is moving forward. The township is growing. People want to be here. And we've had the highest population of increase the past 10 years of any township in the region. And we have the right manager in place. This evaluation reflects that to keep growing, growing in a smart way that preserves the eastern natural third of the township and provides for the economic growth we need as well to bring back our business district, as well as maintain our current assets of excellent neighborhoods and great schools. So, again, it was a pleasure doing this evaluation. We have the right person in Manager Walsh in place, and we're well served by him.
Any other board member comments on this item before us? Trustee Jackson.
I would just add as the seconder that I agree 100% with Mr. DeShane's assessment of the process, of the evaluation process, and the conclusions that we all came to and agreed on.
Thank you, Trustee Jackson. And I'll just take a moment here really briefly to read through the conclusion and the finding of the performance review. The Township Board's opinion, in the Township Board's opinion, Manager Walsh is an excellent municipal manager. Mr. Walsh was excellent in all phases of township governance. His insights and calm discernment of solutions to problems are to be envied. It is obvious to those who work with him that he cares deeply about his job, the community, and our citizens. His devotion to outstanding customer service continues to give Meridian Township a reputation for caring for all of its citizens. In a year with incredibly difficult challenges, he was able to continue his focus on sustainability and stability so that all programs and services of the township continued at a high level, even during difficult circumstances presented by the continuing COVID-19 pandemic. And a note that under his leadership, Meridian Township has been rated the #1 best place to live in Michigan by Niche on numerous occasions. And with that, are there any other comments? Trustee Wazinski?
Speak to the customer service. I requested a meeting with Manager Walsh, which happened to be a holiday, and he met me here at the office without reminding me it was a holiday. And during that time, it was right before January 1st, so it was tax payment time. And Manager Walsh actually provided customer service through his window out of his office to ensure that people knew where to put their tax payments and would get receipt. So just one of those over and above that I witnessed myself. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Wazinski. I was here on that day as well, so I can attest to the customer service that was provided at the walk-up window. Manager Walsh, did you want to say anything?
Well, first of all, thank you. That day was interesting. We met a lot of people collecting taxes that day. Unfortunately, there was one customer, I think Trustee Wazinski was here, she wasn't having it. She wasn't giving me her tax bill. But she wrapped it in a Myers bag and she gave it to me, and we got it all worked out. Come to find out on Monday, accidentally, no one pays their taxes in a Meyer tax bag, and unfortunately the check in the bag, it would be this customer, and she handled it really well, and it all worked out. But it was an interesting 24 hours with her and getting the tax thing all worked out. But I appreciate the help from the treasurer's office on that disposal of that Myers bag. I want to congratulate Trustee Herring-Jackson. What a great choice for Supervisor Pro Tem. So congratulations on that. A note from Craig Patterson, who just left, who asked me to read this to you because he forgot to tell you this. Frank, please convey my gratitude to the Township Board for moving me up on the agenda. It gets me home at a decent time. As far as the performance review, you know, I was raised in a home where parents told me you'll be judged by the people you surround yourself with. That's what they told me every day. And that's what I want to be judged with in Meridian Township. It's the people that, in most cases, that I've chosen, and the two that were here, to my left and to my right, outstanding, and the board that I get to work with, and this community. So my parents would be proud today to judge me by the people that I'm surrounding myself with. Thank you. I really enjoy my job here, but it's all about the people. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Manager Walsh. I don't believe legally we need a record roll call vote on this, but let's take one anyway.
Trustee Wazinski.
Yes.
Trustee Sunland.
Yes.
Supervisor Pro Tem Officer,
Yes.
Trustee Jackson,
Yes.
Treasurer DeShank,
Yes.
and Clerk Guthrie votes yes. Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you, Clerk Guthrie. And we now move on to action item number 12C, the Township Manager's Employment Agreement Amendment. And so briefly, I'm just going to summarize the changes here. Based on the annual performance review conducted on December 14th, 2021, the Township Board unanimously approved extending the Township Manager's contract through December 31st, 2024. The approved language under Section 5C states that the employer shall provide the Township Manager an annual payment of $8,300 into a health savings account, HSA. Given the manager's annual salary of $148,910, the 6% equates to an annual payment of $8,934.60. The maximum annual HSA contribution allowed under federal guidelines is $8,300. Therefore, the approved contract amount exceeds federal guidelines, sorry. The amendment before us amends Section 5 to change the 6% to a lower amount of $8,300. By approving the amendment, we meet the federal guidelines for annual HSA contributions. And we do have a motion in the packet. Would anybody like to read the motion? Trustee Jackson.
I move to amend the January 1, 2022 through December 31, 2024 Township Manager's contract to modify Section 5C by eliminating an annual, quote, an annual payment of 6% to, quote, an annual payment of $8,300, unquote.
Thank you, Trustee Jackson. Is there a second? Seconded by Trustee Wazinski. All right. Is there any discussion on the amendment to the manager's contract? Clerk Guthrie.
Thank you. I have a friendly amendment to this motion. I believe the amount, the $8,300, is that the maximum?
That is the maximum allowed under the federal guidelines, yes.
Okay.
So the original was exceeding that is the issue that we're...
So the intent, I thought, was that the maximum allowed would be what it is rather than $8,300. So if that were to change, then we would be changing it again rather than just saying the maximum that's allowed. So I just had a friendly amendment instead of $8,300 that it's the maximum allowed.
Well, I mean, we could do that, but one item to note is that we do update this annually, so it's a 3-year contract historically. At least that's what we've always done, and I think that even goes back to the prior manager. So, I mean, we will update it every year, so if it does
And the federal
change,
guidelines changed every year?
They could, yeah,
Okay.
that's certainly a possibility. There's probably a small possibility that they could actually roll back, and then we'd really have to look at overall compensation and what that would mean. That's unlikely, obviously. They should trend upward, but I'm not an expert on the federal guideline in this instance.
You're correct. It can go up, it can go down. And I appreciate the clerk's mention. I think it would behoove you to maybe wait and consider that next year, because if the performance isn't there, you're certainly not going to want to automatically increase something today that you may not want to increase in a year. You may want to decrease it based on performance. And the board should hold that option. But thank you very much.
That is a good point. Our attorneys would at least trigger it for us this way. Otherwise, they'll never bring this to our attention. So it does create a trigger so that our attorneys will inform us of this, and then that does bring it to the board's attention for any deliberation, the manager giving one example. Are you okay with the...
Do I have to take my friendly amendment off, or?
No,
Okay.
you can...
I guess it's just something for the board to think about in the future, because that was my intent anyways with the amount, is that it was the maximum allowed, so.
Yeah, and a lot of provisions we would, want it to be sustainable. You don't want to be amending,
Right.
an ordinance every year, but
Yep.
this contract, we do update it every year at the conclusion of the calendar year, so
Okay.
I think we're covered on this one.
Okay. Yes, that satisfies me.
Thank you, Clerk
for
Guthrie.
asking.
Good idea. Other board members with any thoughts on the amendment to the Township Manager's Employment Agreement? Seeing none, we do need a record roll call on this as it's a contract.
Trustee Sunland?
Yes.
Pro Tem Supervisor Officer?
Yes.
Trustee Jackson?
Yes.
Treasurer DeShane?
Yes.
Clerk Guthrie votes yes. Trustee Wazinski?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
All right, thank you, Clerk Guthrie. Point of privilege,
Yes.
Treasurer DeShane.
Thank you. Well, while we voted on 12B, I don't believe we had that motion read aloud, which was the previous one approving the evaluation. So with your permission, I'd like to at least read that motion.
I think I read it.
Did you?
Trustee Wazinski did read it. Yep.
Okay.
After I found it, and didn't wait.
Okay, thank you.
We're making them sweat it out.
We're a little rusty, but I think we're batting 100 right now. All right. Thank you, Treasurer DeShane. That concludes action item number 12C, and we are now moving on to 12E, Communications Commission appointment. And we do have a recommendation from Supervisor Stajka in the packet. Would anyone like to make a motion? Trustee Sunland.
Move to approve the appointment of Lisa Whiting Dobson to the Communications Commission for a term ending 12/31 of 2024.
Thank you, Trustee Sunland. Seconded by Trustee Jackson. All right. Trustee Sunland, would you like to speak at all to the
Yes.
to the appointment?
Lisa Whiting Dobson has excellent credentials and experience in teaching digital media. I believe that she is going to provide an excellent background or more knowledge to the Communications Commission. And she also is a friend of mine personally, so I think she's an excellent choice.
Did you help us recruit her for the Communications
I
Commission?
did not. I was surprised to see this, but I'm very pleased to see it because she is going to be an excellent addition to the Communications Commission.
Thank you, Trustee Sunland. Other board members, any comments? Treasurer DeShane.
Well, I don't know this candidate. She's really typical of the kind of people that come forward and volunteer their time and expertise to the township. And thank gosh they aren't charging us an hourly rate because we can never afford it. She has 4 degrees, a master's in telecommunications, a bachelor's in telecommunications, a BS in psychology, and an associate's degree in dance. I mean, we just are so fortunate that we have these kind of people to come forward and say, I want to help make the township better. I want to serve on one of your boards and commissions. So thank you to Ms. Dobson for stepping forward, and I'm sure she'll make a great contribution to the Communications Commission.
And I would just add to Treasurer DeShane to say that her occupation is in television production, direction, and instruction. So a very good talent and knowledge base to have on the Communications Commission. Clerk Guthrie.
Yeah, Ms. Dobson, she has provided, she has sent students over to the home TV internship program for over 20 years, probably longer than that. And she has had excellent recommendations sent our way for students who are providing a service to our community, and she knows the home TV internship program well. She worked with myself back when Michigan State changed from their semester, and we couldn't recruit, home TV couldn't recruit students any longer. And so I reached out to Ms. Dobson at that time, and she helped me redo Home TV's internship program, rewrite the program to match Michigan State University and some of their requirements. And that changed the number of students dramatically who were coming to the Home TV internship program and showing interest. It went from 1 or 2 students to hundreds of students, and she was surely instrumental in that. And I remember the commission at the time, they thought I was trying to get rid of the home TV internship program when we rewrote it and proposed it to them. So I too did not know that she was submitting this, so I too was surprised, pleasantly surprised, because she certainly has over the years already provided a tremendous contribution to this community.
Thank you, Clerk Guthrie. All right, let's, I believe we can just do this one. Let's take a roll call vote on this one, just to be certain.
Okay. Where's this at? Can't see anymore. I need bifocals. All right. Trustee Sunland?
Yes.
Trustee Wazinski?
Yes.
Supervisor Pro Tem Opsimer?
Yes.
Clerk Guthrie votes yes. Treasurer DeShane?
Yes.
And Trustee Jackson?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you, Clerk Guthrie, and we are now moving on to agenda item number 12F, Board of Review appointments. We have a number of appointments, and before we go on to the motion, I just want to thank Diane Fedora and Martha Bayshore for their service on the Board of Review, and they're creating some vacancies, but we do appreciate their service. And we have two recommendations for appointments, one for an alternate and one for an appointment to the Board of Review before us. Would anybody like to make a motion? Treasurer DeShane.
I move to approve the appointment of Michael Neusdorfer to the Board of Review for a term ending 12/31/2022. Also move to approve the appointment of Christopher Silker to the Board of Review as an alternate for a term ending 12/31/2022.
And seconded by Trustee Jackson. Treasurer DeShane, did you want to speak to your motion?
Just two quick things. One, the Board of Review is an essential board. If someone disagrees with our assessor's assessment of their property value, they can come to one of three boards of review and make the case that their property is not valued properly. That is heard by a Board of Review, which is citizens like themselves that will hear their case and then decide if they keep with the original assessment or reduce it as the applicant has asked for. So it's really essential. It provides a check and balance to what our staff does. I think most of the time, I'm not going to venture to say what happens most of the time, but it's an excellent way for citizens to redress any discrepancy or disagreement with their current tax assessments. I do know one of the candidates, Christopher Silker. He's an active member of my neighborhood association, Cornell Woods. He's also in Rotary, and he also has a young family. And for him to step forward to serve on this Board of Review, again, shows the generosity of our residents. And I'm no doubt Mr. Neusdorfer is just as qualified. Thank you.
Thank you, Treasurer DeShane. Any other comments from the board? Trustee Wazinski.
Just a thank you again to our citizens that step up. I think whoever said it, we couldn't pay them enough, so we know that. And so just want to thank Mr. Neusdorfer and Mr. Silker.
Thank you, Trustee Wazinski. And we do have vacancies on a number of boards and commissions, including the Zoning Board of Appeals. If members of the public are watching from home and interested in serving, they can go to the Meridian Township website to fill out the application for public service. All right, we need a record roll call vote on the motion before us. Clerk Guthrie?
Treasurer DeShane?
Yes.
Clerk Guthrie votes yes. Trustee Jackson?
Yes.
Supervisor Pro Tem Opsimer?
Yes.
Trustee Sunland?
Yes.
And Trustee Wazinski?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you, Clerk Guthrie. And we now come to what is likely to be one of the most prominent items of the evening. We have our 5-year Parks and Recreation Master Plan for 2022 through 2026. And we have Director Luann Maisner tonight. Why don't we have you just give an introduction, then we'll make a motion after you kind of walk us through the item.
That'll be great. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to present our draft plan of our 5-year Parks and Recreation Master Plan update for years 2022 through 2026. This plan represents the vision, goals, and objectives for future programs and facilities in the township. This information is a culmination of inventory and evaluation of current facilities, public input, and the needs based on current and future trends. The purpose of our plan is very comprehensive, and it follows the guidelines established by the Michigan Department of Natural Resources. It is required that every 5 years that the plan be updated and approved and submitted to qualify for state and federal grant eligibility. Meridian Township has received over $3.5 million in state and federal grants since 1972. This plan also serves as a planning guide for future projects in our community and provides an opportunity for public input so we can gauge how the community feels about our system, our recreation services, and what's important to them. Elements of the plan, does this work? All right, I don't know if we can.
There we go.
Can we
You're
zoom
live.
that? Zoom that a little bit. All right. Okay, so elements of the plan include our community description, which is our location, our census information, environmental features, our ordinances, the administrative structure, which would be the staffing, our boards and commissions, and then our Parks and Recreation inventory and evaluation. And in this plan, it is, well, I'll get to that later, I guess, but it is over 450 pages long with the appendices. And I know I didn't want to provide you the entire plan hard copy because that would kill a few trees along the way. But we have an inventory and evaluation of all of our park facilities. So when we purchased it, for how much, what development has taken place on those properties. We have site plans for each of those sites for parks and all of our land preserves as well. It also evaluates all our land preserves, all of our programs and events, the school facilities that are available for community use, county parks in Meridian. There's 430 acres of community parks, our regional amenities, and then also individual maintenance evaluations from previously funded grant programs. So they want to see how well we've done with maintaining our facilities from previous grants, which were 26. And then also, we have a listing of grants or projects that we have completed since the last plan. And I'm just going to give you just a brief overview of some of the highlights. There's much more than this. But Wanch Park redevelopment with the walking trail loop, the pavilion, the outdoor fitness equipment, Hilbert Park tennis courts, pickleball, and basketball court renovation project, a new playground at Hillbrook. Harris Nature Center, the nature exploration area, the new pavilion, a new restroom, a elevated platform for bird watching, wet lab renovations, a new well, and a building generator. Development of Towner Road Park, 25-acre athletic facility with pavilion and athletic fields, and then of course our very popular pickleball courts. The new trailhead and directional signage in our parks. New pavilion at North Meridian Road Park. Dog parks, 2 of them, one for small dogs, one for large dogs. Community art, we had 3 murals installed, painted by the community at festivals. And then of course our LEAP art installation at Marketplace on the Green, and then HBA with their 3 sailboats at the Hazlitt Triangle. Central Park Master Plan implementation, everything that's happened around here. So there's a new bathroom building in the historical village, the fishing dock, the Central Meridian Regional Trail Connector and Boardwalk, the fishing dock in Central Park South, and then of course, Marketplace on the Green, which was like one of the largest projects that we've done and now has an artificial ice rink. New property acquisition of 2 acres at 5280 Okemos Road, which will support a face for Nancy Moore Park, but more importantly, a trail hub for the future MSU to Lake Lansing Trail. So that's just what's happened in the last 5 years. And has helped to have this plan, because when there's a plan and it's documented, that's how things happen. Public input. We pride ourselves in having outstanding communication with our residents year-round through the website, emails, phone calls, and through direct conversations with volunteers. We have our Meridian Conservation Corps, the Friends of Historic Meridian, the Harris Nature Center Foundation, the Meridian Garden Club, Hazlet Beautification Association, youth sports coaches, and our deer management hunters. And this plan really formalizes the process and documents the results. Earlier this year, I should say last year, the township had their community survey, and that was a contracted, statistically valid survey with a lot of parks and recreation questions. The timing couldn't have been better, so I appreciate you doing that at that time because we were able to utilize those results. The Park Commission also engaged in a SurveyMonkey survey that was promoted through our communications department and also sent directly to our stakeholders. So anyone who's ever been in a program, rented a pavilion, all of our hunters, our pickleballers, our senior exercise folks, everyone was sent those directly. And the interesting part is we weren't sure if the survey that the township sent out was really hitting our park users and our program users. And so that's why we did our own, just so we could kind of judge. And the results came back fairly similar between both. So I think the perception and the reality pretty much match. So that was good. And the results were very similar in many ways. Let's see here. Our SurveyMonkey, we also met with our Universal Access Advisory Committee, which is a group of folks who we invite to get together to review our park plans, maybe go over our facilities, and what can we do to make things more accessible and easier to use. The Park Commission also had a booth at the farmers market to accept public input. The plan was available for public review for 30 days, the month of December, here at Town Hall, at the Service Center, and also online. And Park Commission held a public hearing to gain additional input. And now I'm here. The Park Commission did formally approve the plan at their January 11th meeting. And I'm here today, and there is action required today. I know with your meeting schedule changing, normally you like to hear at one meeting and vote on the next, but I am requesting that you can take action tonight because it is due February 1st. So, some highlights from the public input. High satisfaction in the areas of facilities, amenities, customer service, maintenance, and safety. Popular amenities, of course, were paved trails, pathways, outdoor spaces for public gathering, pavilions, restrooms, playgrounds. And the responses related to customer service were good or excellent. The proximity to parks, sorry about that. Proximity to parks and amenities in our community received very high ratings. And I do have a little map I'd like to show you. And we call this our Walkability Map. And as you can see, we have our parks, land preserves, and schools, because many schoolyards have playgrounds. For most people in our community, they can reach a land preserve, a park, or a school within a 5-minute walk. And that's what these circles are identifying. So I've got to say that there's been really an outstanding job of acquiring properties that really hit a majority of our community. And as I look at this little dot here is St. Martha's. I'm not sure if they allow public use of their playground, but they have an excellent one at their school and church. And if we were to add a circle there, that would fill in this open space here. Our community places a high value on open space and conservation, and our residents expressed a strong desire for more emphasis on special events, cultural events, art, and music, river access and paddle sports to make better use of the Red Cedar River, and new amenities, a skate park, a splash pad, more pickleball courts, and a pool. Those were the top getters from public input on new facilities. When we look at national trends, the National Recreation and Park Association, from them, the effects of the pandemic are going to last long beyond 2021. there was a renewed interest in parks, trails, and walkable environments. And we found that in our parks with COVID. We had more users in our facilities than ever before. People are staying closer to home, utilizing local parks for respite and recreation. Parks and natural areas will continue to play a vital role in conservation, climate change, prevention, and environmental sustainability, which is needed now more than ever. Outdoor dining opportunities, healthy foods, and farmers markets are here for a long time to remain popular. Parks and recreation will play a greater role in supporting mental health and well-being. Skyrocketing rates of social isolation and loneliness is calling for a more holistic focus on well-being and access to parks and green space. We have an environmental commission member who's a therapist who prescribes nature to her patients. And we're going to feature her in one of our upcoming videos. And then also the Harris Nature Center just hosted a meditative forest walk this past Sunday. And they've had multiple Wine in the Woods walks. Those have all filled. Like, that people, there's a lot of interest in being out in nature and help with mental health. Technology and Wi-Fi in the parks becoming more essential than ever. Increase in remote work, remote learning, commerce, and communication. That I'm really excited that the township is looking at broadband in our community. Fewer brick and mortar buildings. Empty big box stores may soon become indoor skate parks, community activity spaces, and recreation program areas. With a skate park high on our list and Meridian Mall looking at redevelopment opportunities, I think it's real important to have communication with the mall, and maybe there's an area for a shared hard surface for us to use for something like that. Communities should strive to be dog-friendly. According to a 2021-2022 National Pet Owner Survey, 70% of households in America have pets, up from 56% a few years ago. Communities should strive to be dog-friendly to attract visitors, new residents, and businesses. With self-driving cars on the horizon, there's going to be self-driving mowers. And when we look at mowers, there's already programmable field liners. We just need to take a look at new equipment and with new technology and how we can work smarter. Also identified in our plan, we list our quality of life initiatives, the Complete Streets Ordinance, Green Space Plan, Climate Sustainability Plan, Protect Our Wetlands Plan from the Environmental Commission, our Bicycle Pedestrian Master Plan Program, Land Preservation, and the Ingham County Trail Plan and Millage. Goals and objectives. Look at those real quick. There's not a lot of room up here for me to navigate. Guess I should have done the PowerPoint. Oh, let's see here.
Jeff got the difference.
He saw Derek's.
You're right, we are a little rusty with these presentations. I agree. All right. Thought I'd have a place to sit stuff here. All right. So in your packet, I don't know if, yeah, we're going to have to. This could. Oh, all right. I think I've lost my presentation. I'm sorry, just give me a second. There we go. Okay, so in our plan, we list our goals and objectives. And they are to provide safe and accessible facilities for our community, regardless of physical, socioeconomic characteristics. So really, it's our diversity, equity, and inclusion. Our focus on environmental sustainability, education, and land stewardship. I won't read through all of the objectives. You have it all in your packets. A plan for continued availability of financial, physical, and personnel resources to support the Parks and Recreation system. And when we look at our plan from 5 years ago, we have less staff in our office now than we did 5 years ago, that we would hope to get that restored. And then also in working to fill seasonal positions, we have to look to different places other than college students. So we do plan to take a look at maybe our older retired population. We have volunteers that we engage with from the deer management program and our pickleball players. And we just have to maybe look at the requirements being a little different. So maybe people want to work half days or 3 days a week or different hours. And so I think we just need to be more open and flexible to those types of situations, other than them having to conform to our 8 to 5 or 7:30 to 3:30 time for our maintenance staff. So everyone is having difficulty, so it's not just the money, but it's maybe the work hours or the type of work that we have them do. But we just need to make it more attractive as possible to keep those folks. Next up, utilize recreation programs and events as a vehicle to educate and instill positive personal attributes such as ethics, values, citizenship, sportsmanship, and leadership. And these are all, we have Mike Devlin, who has been an amazing person who has really engaged in the community and affected the lives of so many of our young people. And that is, you just can't put a price tag on that. And we certainly are looking to continue with the value of those programs. And then also communication, making sure that we use all vehicles of communication to make sure we're reaching our residents. I can't tell you how many people have said, I've lived here for 20 years and they've started using our parks and trails. And they've never even knew about it before. So that kind of tells me we need to do some more things to get people out and engaged in our park system. So those are our goals and objectives. And then, of course, we have our action plan. I was all prepared for this, and I just feel a little discombobulated here. I'm really sorry about that. But with our action plan, basically follows our capital improvement plan. And so we've done a lot of stuff in the last 5 or 6 or 8 years, and we're hoping to maybe take a little breather, but I just don't know if that's going to be possible or not. So the things we have coming up, these are the budgeted projects for this year in the capital improvement plan. And then we have years, well, that's not coming out right. And these are all in your packet as well. But pretty much following our capital improvement program with improvements, not only new improvements, but a lot of renovation and maintenance activities moving forward, and improvements to our trail and pathway system. Sports field renovation, land acquisition and easement agreements were needed, and an additional focus on the Red Cedar River and recreation, water trails, and fishing access. So, in conclusion, Meridian Township residents place a high value on quality of life amenities, including parks, trails, land preservation, pathways, environmental stewardship, and sustainability and conservation. With continued financial support from the general fund, park millage, pathway millage, land preservation millage, community services millage, grants, donations, and with outstanding and consistent volunteer engagement with and through our volunteers, and with continued strong park commission and township board leadership. Together, we're creating a community where people want to live, play, and work. And that is the place we call Meridian Township, or as we call it, home. So it was, just today, I had someone call me and say that they use Hilbert Park, Towner Road Park on a regular basis. And they actually, he said to me, you know what? And the dog park. He used the dog park a lot. He said, these amenities and the parks are worth the tax dollars that I pay. And it's nice to hear that validation. I also received a communication from a resident today where they saw an art installation and sent me a picture. And said, I know that Meridian's focusing on art, and I would love to serve on an arts council if we put one together. So we're getting communications every day. People understand the culture and the things that we want to do because we're listening to them. And that is the value of updating this plan. Sometimes you just get so focused into what you're doing every day. And when you ask people what they want and they hear that you're listening to them, they're engaged. And like I said, our volunteer support is amazing. And staff is amazing. And I would like to say that with the upcoming availability of the ARPA funds for state and local parks, as well as funds available through the Land and Water Conservation Fund, the Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund, it's essential to have on file this plan to capture as many of these dollars as we can for our community. I think with that, I'm going to close. I'm overheated with this mask on. But I would like to say we did this plan and updated it all in-house with staff. I would like to, it was like my entire staff that was involved in this, but Jane Greenway and Bridget Cannon handle a lot of the work, and then also Kara Manny, who's our GIS specialist, helped us out with a lot of the maps. And this was an entire department effort, and we are excited to be able to submit this and make ourselves available for and eligible for upcoming grants.
Thank you, Director Maisner. Now I'd like to ask if there's a motion before we enter discussion. Trustee Wazinski?
I move to approve the attached resolution of support to adopt the Meridian Township Parks and Recreation Master Plan 2022 through 2026 as a guideline for improving parks and recreation facilities and services for the residents of Meridian Township, and to authorize its submission to the Michigan Department of Natural Resources for state and federal grant eligibility.
Seconded by Clerk Guthrie. All right, Trustee Wazinski as the motion maker, would you like to kick off discussion?
Yeah, I'm going to start with Louie and Director Maisner. Your excitement is infectious. So there's not a better person that we could have as our Parks and Rec Director. And I want to thank you for being our director. I do want to thank staff. I've worked a lot with Emma lately on wetlands. She's put in a lot of time and effort and a lot of knowledge. Of course, I've worked with Mike Devlin in the past and Jane as well. I'm happy to meet the rest of the staff, which I haven't met yet, but also want to thank the park commissioners. That is a fun job, but it is also, a very important job as well. And then, of course, all the residents that came and put their input in to help you develop this plan. So I read the vision, and I really liked your vision is creating community through people, parks, and programs. And it really does. That's what the folks said today on the phone, is that's what it does. It does create a community. The Marketplace on the Green, I was fortunate enough to be able to, in some of the early discussions, have been a part of that, and it really is just a destination place. It's just, I tell people from all over the region, you gotta come to the Marketplace. Like, it's really a destination with the dog park across. It's just really all coming together, and you are creating that place for us to be. You went through all the accomplishments. That was no wonder you're out of breath. A couple of the things that I just wanted to note that that you didn't get a chance to talk about was the improving the accessibility. So I know even when I was on Park Commission, you'd already started thinking about that and making sure that all of our amenities and are as accessible to as many people as possible. And I just think that's really important, especially in a park and rec situation, especially for mental health. So I really appreciate that. And then all the signage. A lot of new signage that is got interpretive signage, but also just very informative. So I really appreciate that too. When I use the parks, it's super helpful. The other thing was the mobile tool shed. So that's proven very successful as well, and
Yes.
helpful and that's with gardening and with any other projects that might need to be done that's available. So, of course, all the recreational programs. I don't know how Mike Devlin runs all of those programs. I coached for him, and it was very well run, considering he had 13 games going on at one time at one field, and so that's just my kids it's ever since Sporties for Shorties. My kids have been involved in Meridian Township Parks and Rec, and it's just been fantastic. So I guess wanted to say I really appreciate your focus on your new goals on this diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I did have one question, and I should have reviewed it, and I did review our survey, but it's been a while. I know in our survey, the community has said we would like to see more like cultural events and things like that. Did you get any input on what our community would like to see, or is that something maybe we should reach out and maybe ask for some more input on what type of cultural events that we could have?
Yeah, I think they stayed fairly general, like in the first survey that you had done, that they will, like to have more activities that they can attend with their, like, art, cultural events, music, and they didn't really get specific on exactly what, but we did start with more music events with our Wednesday night concerts at Marketplace. The Harris Nature Center hosted Music in the Woods. I think they had like 4 or 5 concerts in the summer there for the last 2 years. So we've been, and we already have financial support for concerts coming up this year. And it also complements what happens at Lake Lansing. I think with COVID, we're not ready for big events. So we've been really trying to focus on a lot of smaller activities and things that people can come, but it might not be a general interest to bring in a lot of folks, but just some smaller events throughout the year. And then hopefully we'll be beyond this pandemic and we can start getting back together again. But I've got to tell you that it's been challenging in trying to provide programs and activities to keep our children active, but also to keep everyone safe. Coaches, parents, they all want to come to the game and be there at the same time, and not everyone wants to wear a mask. And but we've endured those challenges, and our senior center has remained viable and vibrant with programs and activities and keeping everyone engaged. Our farmers market has been more popular than ever, and when we present our annual report and give you the statistics at that point, but moving the marketplace has been phenomenal for the farmers market. Our market manager has done an outstanding job, and our community is just loving it. Yep. And so we have been very successful at keeping people safe, keeping people engaged, probably not quite to the degree we were, but any of our programs, our Harris Nature Center had the highest amount of children registered for the summer camp programs. And everything we're doing is filling up, but we're just not offering it to massive amounts of folks at one time.
Yeah, great job on that, for sure. So given all of the work you've done and then the hefty plan you got ahead of you, I'm wondering, like, you did mention like a need for new staff. So to fully staff and be able to manage all of this, what would be helpful that we could do as ARPA funds, or like that we could support you on your grant writing? Or
no, I appreciate that question. I know we look at what we can do to work smarter and work better, and we're not just asking to have more staff to say we need more, just to have more staff. And prior to COVID, we had 2 recreation people, and we have 1. And it would be nice to have that position restored, and hopefully I can work with Manager Walsh and we can move in that direction. And then Katie Adams manages she's the lead for our Parks and Grounds Maintenance Division, as well as leading the Harris Nature Center, where we had a full, 2 full-time people at the Nature Center plus a facility superintendent. So, and that has kind of been combined. So that's been where we've reduced staff a little bit. And, I can understand totally with what was going on with COVID and the recreation position, but as we are now moving out of it and people are desiring more activities and programs, and it would be good to bring our second recreation person back. Like I said, that'll be something that I'll work directly with Manager Walsh on.
Great. And those self-mowing lawnmowers.
Oh, heck yeah, we're looking at all sorts of new equipment and things we can do to work smarter and better in the future, so.
Excellent. Well, I want to say thank you. And it truly, it is what makes Meridian a very special place to live. So I appreciate all the work that you and your staff and our commissioners and our residents do.
Great. Thank you, Trustee Wazinski.
Thank you, Trustee Wazinski. Other board members, thoughts and questions for Director Maisner? Clerk Guthrie.
I want to echo Trustee Wazinski's compliments of your staff, yourself, and the parks and what they contribute to this community. Also, you started in 1998?
99.
1999, and your enthusiasm then, you still have that same enthusiasm today, and that passion and that desire, and it's appreciated.
Thank you.
I think you had mentioned something about a machine that does the lining of the fields. I had Derm teach me one time how to line football fields. That was the first and the last time I ever lined a football field. I recruited some high school students to do it after that. So I look for whatever, because it's tedious. It takes way longer than people realize, lining fields appropriately, and getting all of those lines straight and right. And so, I'm very supportive of any kind of technology that improves the efficiency for staff to do that at our own fields. Also, I did sit on the Universal Access Advisory Committee, and I look forward to more committee meetings and being part of that. And so one of my questions is about universal access. If you could expand upon what some of those items may look like in the next 5 years in this plan. I may have missed it. I was trying to find it, and
there wasn't anything specific. But
okay.
As we work with the Greater Lansing Autism Association, I know they have provided training for our staff at Harris Nature Center. They've provided kits in working with children with autism. So when they come to the Nature Center, we're better prepared on how to work better with those folks. Of course, there's all the ADA requirements, and we work very hard to meet or exceed all of those. I know at the Harris Nature Center, I didn't mention, we added the electric doors where you just push the button and the door opens. We didn't have that before. And then with COVID, we've worked to put in all of our restrooms the touchless fixtures. To try to keep everyone as safe as possible. And I know when we met with that Universal Access Advisory Committee, they talked about adult changing tables. You always think of of baby changing tables in our restrooms, and then also about if with noises and so programs that we can have that maybe have reduced activity or excitement. To make sure that we can serve that population. And then just regular things on making sure there's benches. So when people are walking, they don't have to walk a mile before they can sit down or whatever. And where are the restrooms? And what does our signage say so they know where they're headed? We're also in the process of updating a park trail map. So it's our bicycle pedestrian pathway map, but also on there we'll have rest areas noted, for restrooms and benches, so when people get out and they can see this map. We have the one our engineering department has, but it's not like a fun, kind of more user-friendly type map. So we're trying to do some things, and then it's also digitized. It'll be on the website, and then all of our park trail maps are on an All Trails app. So whatever, if you're in our community, you can go to that app, and our trails are showing on that.
You also mentioned skate park was high on the list, and you mentioned the mall. Is it something the board can do, or that we should be aware of or look into to support that sort of idea, or just so we're better prepared?
Sure. We have a group of very enthusiastic students and parents who have come to the Park Commission recently, and they are ready to pull up their sleeves and go after some grant funding. They're really looking for a great location for something like this. Centrally located in a highly populated, visible area is preferred. And then when you look at, it's all impervious surface when you're looking at skate park. So is there a place we can go where there's existing impervious surface that maybe isn't being used, that we could construct something like that? Or work with, or maybe even work with the mall. I know if we try to go to an indoor space, that could be cost prohibitive for many of the users. So I think maybe try to keep something outdoors, but maybe partner with in some place or an area that already has impervious surface that we could utilize in partnership. And it doesn't necessarily have to be the mall, but I know when there's discussions of redevelopment, that's the perfect time to get in and at least share some of our thoughts.
Okay, and then I have one more question, and then just a comment. In here, it shows 2027 Meridian Riverfront Park Trail improvements at $1 million. Could you talk about that a little bit?
Well, yeah, we've looked at, how to make that trail runs from Eastgate Park on Meridian Road near Grand River all the way to the Harris Nature Center, and then across the street, and then through Leg Park, and comes out at the Sylvan Land Preserve at the end of Sylvan Glen. So it is like an entire east-west connection. And then if you get out to Dobie Road, you can slide down all the way over to Okemos Road, and then there's another cross-country pathway that gets you over to Okemos Schools. So we do have this outstanding connection. But wouldn't it be great if it could be a multi-use accessible trail? Parts of the Meridian Riverfront trail system would be difficult to pave and remain accessible based on the grade and elevation changes. But there are some areas that we can definitely make improvements to make it more navigable for all individuals.
All right, and then
And we do not have a specific plan, because we'd have to develop something like that. But the vision is, and also I'd like to talk about a vision that was on our plan before I got to Meridian Township, and that was for an under-the-bridge walkway between Ferguson Park and Wanch Park, and it is now becoming a reality. I think we ended up taking it off the list because it had been on for 2 decades at least. And we didn't really see that would ever happen, but it's back and it is happening. So it is important to put your dreams and desires and wishes in writing, because you never know what can happen.
And then I just have one comment or recommendation. I don't know about anyone else, but I sometimes feel like I'm inundated with communication messages via email, social, TV, news, everything. Print, digital, and just a recommendation maybe to do some push notifications on Facebook so that some of those events and things that people can get involved with gets in front of people's eyeballs more readily, because there's so much stuff out there. It's I was making a comment, I don't even remember, one of the township board members here, was it you? That it's hard to, sometimes I don't see things because there's so many things going out on social media. So just a recommendation that a $5 thing here or there can really show up in front of a lot of eyeballs.
No, thank you.
And thank you for all your hard work on this. And please pass my thanks on to the staff for working on this plan.
I will, thank you.
Treasurer DeShane.
Wow, the past 5 years have been phenomenal. And if you can do anything close to that the next 5 years, I mean, I can't imagine 5 years of more productive growth than the 5 years you've just completed. And as a former park commissioner like Trustee Wenzinski, I think we need to give a lot of credit to the park commission. It's very dedicated and had some outstanding leadership. Most recently, Amanda Lick, before that, Mike McDonald, and before that, Terry Banas, who's, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of these grants we've gotten only because we have matching money for them that the most recent park millage passed in 2013 allowed for. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct. We went years and years and years going through the process of updating the 6-year capital improvement program with never being able to get anything done because there was no money available for matching funds, so we would just push it to the next years. And once that millage was passed in 2014, that's what gave the capital for grant matches, and we've been going great guns ever since.
And I remember that campaign.
Yes,
Terry and others created their own brochure, walked them door to door. It was not a professional campaign, but it was a group of citizens that took the message to the other citizens and said, we need this, and here's what we can do with it. And due to the generosity of our voters, it passed. So we owe a great deal of thanks to the Park Commission and your leadership as well. So that's all. Keep our goals high that we have in the next 5 years, something like the past 5 years. Great work.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Treasurer DeShane. Trustee Jackson.
Director Maisner, I want to kind of change the subject a little bit and talk about this master plan that you and your staff and the Park Commission have put together in-house over, probably 2 years?
Yes, you know, there was a lot of work put into it during COVID time when it was the stay-home work. Jane Greenway did a lot of the updating on a lot of our facility inventory information, and then as soon as the census data came in, she was, you know, ready to put some of those things in. And she and I were involved. 10 years ago, we did it in-house as well. And I think I had it ergonomically incorrect setup at my desk and ended up having to go for therapy because I had a pinched nerve in my neck and whatever. So there was some, you know, a lot of sweat equity goes into this. And then we ended up contracting 5 years ago to have this done. But in all actuality, we know this information as far as what we have. And then with our 6-year capital improvement program the township has, the real value is the public input in gaining communication with our public, not just to them or from them, but with them. And that's what this plan does. And it really, you know, now that the conversation has started, like I said, I got the phone call today about the art. Hey, I'd like to be on an arts council, and here I've got some pictures of what's going on in Grand Rapids. Maybe we can do something like that here. So it does garner enthusiasm. So I think it really started with the Township Board survey last year, and then kind of continued with ours, and this conversation has been ongoing. So it is nice. We are so fortunate to have so much community engagement in our parks and preserves and programs, and then also on our boards and commissions, as you were speaking about earlier. So we have a very excited and engaged community, and this is just the greatest place to work.
I think the second part of my comment had to do with applauding the level of community engagement you used to produce this document. And the other thing that struck me in your presentation was the comment that people are calling you now and talking to you now about the fact that they've been here for many, many years and not aware of what is available in terms of community amenities in Meridian Township. And then your focus in your master plan to improve the communications to the whole township. I think that's a well thought out plan, and I applaud the efforts of the Park Commission and you and your staff for that foresight and planning.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Jackson. Any other comments or questions from board members?
Oh.
Director Maisner, final thoughts?
I'm sorry, I do have one other thing. I know that you normally like to hear about the plan and then vote on it at the next meeting. But I also want to make sure that, you know, we can update this at any time. So if there is something that we feel that was missed and needs to be added, we certainly can do that. And then also, with DNR rules and regulations, we would require a public hearing and Township Board approval to apply for any grants. So just because you adopt this plan tonight doesn't mean that you are committed to do it. There's still other processes moving forward before things are constructed or grants are applied for and received. Plus, you still need to vote to receive the funds, even if we do get them. So there's a lot of processes in between today and when anything is constructed.
Okay.
Thank you, Director Maisner. So I'll be very brief because I think a lot has been said on this topic by everybody. Manager Walsh mentioned the Deer Management Program at the beginning of his report, but I just want to say thank you to your department and your staff and yourself, and then to Chief Plaga and the Police Department for taking that program to a very analytical level with precision in how we're actually administering it and what our target is and having an objective goal. It's just phenomenal, and I've had so many residents speak to me about that program over the years, not necessarily with critiques, but just, I understand the program is there, deer are still an issue in our neighborhood or on our roadways, etc. And so actually when I get the updates from yourself or Manager Walsh when they're forwarded on, I kind of have a little listserv that I send out periodically, maybe once or twice a week, to keep residents apprised on the status of the program for the given year. And so I just want to thank you. It's really phenomenal what we've done, and also the ingenuity with making sure that we're donating all that venison to the food pantries and kitchens in the region who need that for families. So thank you. The only thing that I would flag that I didn't see in here, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but I do know that we've had a waiting list already for our farmers market. Has your team deliberated at all internally about what could be done to accommodate future growth of the farmers market based on where we're kind of at today?
Sure. I'm not aware of many people on a waiting list, but we do have the Wednesdays available if they can't get in on Saturdays. And then also in the early seasons from like May and June, and then also when we get toward the end of the season, in September and October, there's more openings than there are during
Yeah, it was a summer month where someone waited, I think, 3 or 4 weeks, but they did get in. So they were a vendor over the summer months, but so we're only seeing that capacity reached during kind of the peak months.
I believe so. And then there's, you know, because we do allow daily vendors in as well. So there's our seasonal vendors who there's guidelines for that. And then occasionally, then there's also, we have booth spaces available for daily vendors.
Okay, so
So there's always should be opportunity for folks to get in at some point.
Okay, that's helpful.
Yep.
And then is there anything, I was reviewing the specific projects, the action plan, is there anything in the way of new pickleball courts?
We do not have anything in the action plan for pickleball courts, but we do I believe in the goals and objectives.
Okay.
I think so. We would need to identify where those may be located. Now I know City of East Lansing at Patriarch Park is redoing all of their pickleball courts and adding, and that will put strain on our courts for this summer. But then next year, hopefully, it'll ease some of the stress that we have. Where there's just not enough time for the needs of what our pickleballers are interested in playing. They're out there with snow blowers and shovels right now and playing all winter long.
I live about 150 yards from the Hilbert Park and I can attest it's actually a very good background noise in this, you know, when they're out there playing. It's good white noise in the background, but I can attest to when it's being played, especially when I was working from home. So I just know that that's a need, and that's one question I get often. And then I saw, final item, is I saw the Hilbert Park restroom facility, and I know we're using porta potties at a lot of the facilities in the township where we don't have that, permanent restroom facility, but I know the pickleball players and the youth baseball leagues will really appreciate access to that facility once it comes here towards the end of this 5-year plan, hopefully.
Right, and and as we look at greater use of that facility, I could see that project moving up the list to get something out there soon. And with COVID, things are different than what we ever imagined they would be. And so when we look at Marketplace on the Green, never imagined a winter market there. And we need to do some things soon to help make that a little more tolerable during the winter months. But our visitation is still great, but there's a lot of wind, and so we're looking at retractable windscreens. Obviously not budgeted, so I might be back, or maybe some ARPA funds could help support that. And then our historical village, when there's not as much use in the structures, they come into disrepair. And then also when there's not as much activity, there's not the revenue that's being generated for Friends of Historic Meridian. So we will have some building repair and maintenance that we'll have to do. And then also even at Harris Nature Center, with less people in the building, and the attic area has critter damage, and with a $9,000 bill for cleaning and repairs and sealing. So these are things that we didn't really anticipate. So we do have some expenses that I feel we can attribute to COVID, and that's not even in the plan. I guess those are just regular things coming up that we're going to have to deal with, and restrooms. We did not make it a year-round restroom at Marketplace. Should have done that. So now we're going to go back in and retrofit that restroom so it can be open year-round.
Thank you, Director Meisner. All right. Any final comments from board members? Not seeing anything. Thank you so much again for all your work and your staff's time and investment in this. And we have the motion
Thank you
made
for
and seconded. Trustee Jackson, any final comments?
No, the motion has been made and seconded.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Trustee Wazinski made it, and I think I split the tie and gave it to Clerk Guthrie on the second.
Okay.
All right, so we need a record roll call vote on adoption of the master plan.
Trustee Jackson.
Yes.
Supervisor Pro Tem Opsimer.
Yes.
Trustee Sunland.
Yes.
Trustee Wazinski.
Yes.
Clerk Guthrie votes yes. Treasurer DeShane.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you, Clerk Guthrie. And we now come to action item 12H, resolution commemorating Black History Month.
Thank you for your continued support and leadership. Appreciate it.
Would someone like to make the motion for action item 12H? Trustee Wazinski.
Oh, this is easy one. I move to approve the resolution commemorating Black History Month.
Support.
Supported by Treasurer DeShane. Trustee Wazinski, would you like to speak to your motion?
Sure. This is this is every year I've been on the board. We adopt this, and I think it's so very important that we do. I think I mentioned this last time. I don't know if January is the best month to adopt, but or February, I'm sorry, it's the shortest and coldest month of the year. But I am very honored that we do, and I'd like to see us maybe develop some actual activities that we could do within this month too. So I maybe bring that to our diversity, equity, and inclusion work group.
Thank you, Trustee Wazinski. Other board members? Anyone else that would like to speak to this item? Treasurer DeShane.
I'd like to read just the last 3 paragraphs of it, which says, whereas since 2015, the Meridian Township Board has adopted a recurring commitment to increase diversity, equity in all aspects, to increase diversity in all aspects of the township functions, specifically its board goals and functions. Whereas November 2016, Patricia Herring Jackson became the first African-American female elected to the Township Board as a trustee. Now therefore be it resolved that by the Township Board of the Charter Township of Meridian in Ingham County, Michigan, that the Meridian Township commemorates Black History Month to pay tribute to the generations of African Americans who struggled with adversity and to celebrate the accomplishments, contributions, and history of African Americans. It sums up this nicely, and it actually names our our new Speaker Pro Tem. So very fitting part of the resolution to bring to the public's attention.
Trustee Jackson.
I would just note that I believe Manager Walsh mentioned efforts already in play in the township to develop ways of commemorating this and other such.
Correct, yeah, the staff is working on, it's difficult to come up with an event that you can do during COVID, but we're working on it, trying to work up some solutions. Director Clark has some great suggestions from her time in the city of Jackson, although her comment was pretty to the point yesterday when we said, well, how do we do this? She said, well, in Jackson, we started in October. So I received that message loud and clear, but we are working on something, and we'll keep you posted. If you have any ideas, please let us know.
Thank you.
Does anybody have a time machine? Seeing none. Well, thank you, Manager Walsh, and thank you, Director Clark, for the work that you're doing on that. I did see an email on that, so we appreciate that greatly. And then I would just note, I don't believe it's touched on in the resolution, but obviously diversity across the township workforce, and in particular in the police department, has been an emphasis, and we have made great strides in the police department. I think we've increased our diversity there about fourfold, and of course among the female portion, we're now over 25% of our officers being female. So great strides made there as well that speak to the purpose of the resolution. All right. So for this, we can do a voice vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye. All those opposed? The resolution is adopted unanimously. And we are now moving on to action item number 12I, the resolution to approve ballot language for the August election. And I believe Manager Walsh is going to introduce this item for us. We'll have an introduction, then we'll come back and make the motion here.
Thank you. The language before you has been approved by council and reviewed by Clerk Guthrie. Final review and approval by our legal counsel. And this involves the upcoming, I think it's August 2nd, ballot on recreational marijuana. And this is the ballot, this is the language that the board approved to put on the ballot after there was this, you know the history, that a citizens group got involved in the issue, some petitions were gathered, and the issue was placed on the ballot. So before you this evening is the approval of the actual ballot language that will go on the August 2nd primary ballot here in Meridian Township. And it'll be open to all, I think, what do we have, 19 precincts, or 19 or 20 precincts, all 45,000 residents. Well, all registered voters in Meridian Township will be voting, if they choose, on this initiative if it's approved. The language is in front of you, and again, been approved by legal counsel.
Thank you, Manager Walsh. Sure. One question I had real quick. The language, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't change, but obviously in November, or well, actually preceding the November election when we opted to postpone this until August, we never actually ratified ballot language. Is that the extent of the question really before the board?
Yeah, I think you may have approved the ballot language. The issue, you approved the ballot language, I believe, going back a few months ago now. I don't have my stuff in front of me, but I believe if you rewind the tape, you approved the language for the ballot. The issue became, I guess the key words were "at the next regular election" was the language, the words that tripped us up a little bit. There was a case up in, I believe it was Grand Traverse County. I think it was Whitewater Township, actually, if I recall. And there was a judge up there, I think a former state representative, Eschel. Yep. Judge up in Grand Traverse County who ruled that the next regular election was an election that there was something on the ballot would be a regular election. Because it was going to be on in Meridian Township last November, there was nothing on the ballot. It was determined by our council and subsequently approved by the board, in agreement with the board, by the board, that they agreed that there was the next regular election would be August 2nd. And so therefore, It was put off until August 2nd at the advice of council because of the next regular election. And so before you is the ballot language, taking everything into account. And I believe, again, not in front of me right now, but I believe that there was something in there, I read this yesterday, where something changed in the law, the language or something. And so the language has been amended to meet that criteria, I believe. Now, I don't have all the details in front of me right now, but there was something, it didn't change. It was changed to meet the parameters of the law, but didn't change the meaning of, hey, we're voting on recreational marijuana, whether it'll be allowed in Meridian Township, August 2nd, 2022. So that's taking you through the last steps of the last few months of what happened.
Okay. Thank you, Manager Walsh.
Sure.
Questions and comments from board members? Treasurer DeShane?
With the board's permission, make the motion. I move to approve the resolution to approve ballot language for the next regular election to be held on Tuesday, August 2nd, 2022. And now therefore be it resolved that the following ballot language be placed on the August 2nd, 2022 election ballot by the Ingham County Clerk. Charter Township Meridian, initiation of an ordinance to prohibit adult use marijuana establishments. Shall the Charter Township Meridian, under the authority of Section 6(1) of the Michigan Regulation and Taxation of Marijuana Act, initiated law of 1 of 2018, otherwise known as MRTMA, MCL 333.27956.1, adopt the following initiated ordinance that completely prohibits the adult use, also known as recreational marijuana establishments, as defined in Section 3H of MRTMA MCL 333.27953H within the boundaries of the township. Quote, all adult use, also known as recreational marijuana establishments as defined in Section 3H of the Michigan Regulation and Taxation of Marijuana Act, initiated Law 1 of 2018, are prohibited within the boundaries of the Charter Township of Meridian. End quote.
And seconded by Clerk Guthrie.
I'm going to make just one correction, just to make sure it's on record. It was Section 3I, not 3H of the Michigan Regulation and Taxation of Marijuana Act.
And it's correct in the actual packet.
It is, yeah. There was just a lot of letters and numbers.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, trustee.
All right. Treasurer DeShane, would you like to speak to your motion?
This is not, as Manager Walsh spoke to a minute ago, this is not actually action being initiated by the board. It was initiated by the citizens group that brought enough signatures to bring the issue before the electorate. And we had intended to have it on the November election, and we were told by legal counsel that wasn't a regular election. This is the next act that we did, and not to deny the intent of the citizens group, we are putting on the next general election, which will be the August primary. This, excuse me, if I could just finish. This has been an issue, as we all know, has divided this board, and it's an important issue, and I think putting it before the citizens is an excellent way for it to be resolved and allow this board to move on either direction based on the outcome of the August 2nd election.
Thank you, Treasurer DeShane. Clerk Guthrie.
Just to let the citizens know that the job of the clerk's office is to verify the signatures on the petition and then to subsequently send that over to and send this resolution over to the county clerk. So that would be the next step in this process. And just to help the township manager out, since I am able to access emails since I'm sitting up here, the change was Fahey said, our attorney said that there was an amendment to MRTMA in October that changed the paragraph numbers of some of the subsections. And so the proposed language, so I want anyone who was working on this, the petitioners, to know that that was the only change. So if they they're not going back and thinking we changed a bunch of stuff. That's what the attorney changed in there, was the paragraph numbers for some of the subsections.
Excellent. Thank you, Clerk Guthrie. That's helpful. So it's one of the MCL citations that changed. Trustee Jackson.
Yes, I'd just like to, I believe Clerk Guthrie might be able to help me to understand the definition of regular election in this instance.
So what the attorney was saying, unless I see Manager Walsh, so what the attorney was saying is that a special election is one in which you don't have candidates on the ballot. And we did not, since we didn't have any candidates running for office, we didn't have a regular election going on in Meridian Township.
So because the petition and the call for a vote came out of the township would have needed to have an election determining other kinds. The township itself would have needed to have an election.
A special election just for this proposal, correct?
Or it would have been a special election.
Yes.
Even on November the 2nd.
Yes, because there were no candidates running for office.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so that's my recollection from the attorney's interpretation of having this at a regular election, which would be when candidates were appearing on the ballot.
When candidates from the township were also appearing on the ballot.
No, just any candidates.
So like the presidential election.
Well, yeah, there's a little bit of minutia there because it couldn't be a school board election because unless we had all our 4 school districts holding an election, because it would have to be an election in which township-wide we have an election. Yeah, the term regular election is used in statute. It's in Michigan law, but it's not defined. So typically, terms like that will be defined on occasion. It's up to the legislature on how they draft it. The court decision that Manager Walsh referenced in Grand Traverse was a very recent decision. It was issued that very year that that these signatures were gathered, and this came before the board. And Ingham County Clerk Barb Byram's office flagged that. Our attorneys reviewed it, and that court, in their opinion, they were seeking to, through case law, create a definition for what constitutes a regular election. So it's an election that would occur with or without, this ballot proposal by there being candidates on the ballot.
And a
Which
primary
in a township,
or general.
That's only August and November of even years. We don't have regular elections on an odd year. However, if the township were to put something on the ballot, say we put a millage on and voters created an initiative like this, that would be a separate legal question, and I don't even think we have opinion on that, but it's not a matter before us. Manager Walsh?
Exactly. Yeah. Because we didn't have anything on the ballot, there wasn't defined under council recommendation. There was no regular election, because we had no election. But we did Supervisor Opsimer raises an interesting point. Just for information, if you want to know this, it's not relevant to this evening, but had we had another issue on the ballot, then therefore that would have been a regular election because there was something on the ballot, regardless of what it was, as long as it was township-wide. Say we would have had a millage on, then this question would have been on back then, just so you know. But there was nothing on the ballot, it was not a regular election, and we listened to our council, and our county clerk flagged it as well. So here we are, we're here tonight to set the ballot language for August 2nd of 2022.
Okay. I'm ready to go.
Was that clear?
Yeah. I still have a problem, but we'll deal with that later.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Jackson. Any other questions or comments from board members on the ballot language and the motion? Seeing none, I believe we're ready for a record roll call vote. Clerk Guthrie, please call the roll.
All right, Supervisor Pro Tem Opsimer?
Yes.
Trustee Sumlin?
Yes.
Trustee Wazinski?
Yes.
Trustee Jackson?
Yes.
Treasurer DeShane?
Yes.
And Clerk Guthrie votes yes. Motion carries 6-0.
All right, thank you, Clerk Guthrie, and we are now on to our final action item of the evening, item 12K, nomination of Trustee Patricia Herring-Jackson to the Ingham County Broadband Task Force. This is a recently formed task force, and we have communicated with them. We are actually the only community to get a recommendation in within about the first week or two. And we were on top of the meeting where this task force was announced by Controller Todd. I believe we have a motion in the packet because this was a late addition to the agenda. Would anyone like to make a motion? Trustee Wazinski.
I'll move to appoint Trustee Patricia Herring-Jackson to serve as Meridian Township's okay. I move to appoint Trustee Patricia Herring-Jackson to serve as Meridian Township's representative on the Ingham County's Broadband Task Force. The appointment is contingent upon the approval of Ingham County officials.
Right. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Seconded by Treasurer DeShane. And Manager Walsh, did you have any comments on this item?
Just real quick, yes, Supervisor Stika did issue a letter. We were the first community in. As of a couple weeks ago, we're the only township in Ingham County, and it's my understanding that Trustee Herring-Jackson has an interview coming up on February 1 to be our representative, and this was Supervisor Stika's strong recommendation that she be the one. Thank you.
And I would just note for context, the township kind of coalition that has started up an email listserv in Ingham County. They were actually approached by the county because nobody had reached out for the other township spots. And so they transmitted an email out to the listserv to kind of drum up support. So we're really kind of leading on at least the energy on this issue, and we appreciate Trustee Jackson's service on the task force and look forward to your updates to come.
Thank you.
All right,
I would just add, too, that the reason it's significant for townships to have a recommendation for this task force is that that's the way the task force is set up. There's positions reserved for township representatives, and that's the significance of
and townships have pretty good representation on the task force due to our, we just represent more rural areas in general across the county, so they were generous in putting 3 township seats.
Right.
I believe there's only 2 city and village seats combined. Trustee Wazinski.
I would just say that I think that Trustee Jackson is the perfect person for this, for Meridian, as representative. You've been advocating for broadband for as long as I've known you. And then also, I think it is really important to look at a regional basis, and I know we've had those discussions in the past, so I'm really happy that you've been nominated, and I know you'll do well on your interview.
I'm excited to see movement in this area, and if I could contribute to speeding that up a little bit, I'm grateful for the opportunity to do that.
Excellent. Any other comments? Not seeing any. Let's take a record roll call vote. Clerk Guthrie, would you please call the roll?
Trustee Sumlin?
Yes.
Trustee Wazinski?
Yes.
Supervisor Pro Tem Absmer?
Yes.
Trustee Jackson?
Yes.
Clerk Guthrie votes yes. Treasurer DeShane?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
All right, that was a lengthy list of action items, but we have now concluded our action items. We're on to item 13A, redevelopment ready communities, the RRC recertification. And we have Director Clark coming up to give us an update on our RRC recertification process.
Good evening. It is quite the tongue twister, right? Another recertification. So brought to you the conversation at our goals meeting that RRC has transferred from a 3-year program to a 5 to keep up with our master plan update. Inside the packet, you'll see the full suggestions and best practice updates that we have to make across multiple departments. Economic development and community planning are the heaviest, including information from capital improvement plan and communications plans. I just want to leave it open to any questions if you have any. for Tim or myself. I included our successful recertification pathway in there for you to get a gist of when items might be coming to various boards for approval.
Questions from the board for Director Clark? Treasurer DeShane.
Most of us here were present for the previous Economic Director, Chris Buck's original application for redevelopment-ready recertification. It was quite a lengthy process and touch and go for times. How are you expecting the recertification to go? Will it be anywhere near as much work as the initial certification?
Unfortunately, without me being here to know what went through the first time, I can't really compare. I feel pretty confident that we can do it. We have 2 years. We have a software management system that as items are updated, I can just directly update that to MEDC. They can check it off when they have time and then recertify us.
Sure.
Other board members, Trustee Jackson.
Yes, I too recognize that both you and Mr. Schmidt are essentially new to this process of Meridian Township. One of the questions I wanted to pose to both of you is if you still think this is a worthwhile process for us to pursue, and I would expect you to gauge that based on observations of what we actually got out of this certification, how it has helped us, come to this part. And with the changes to RCC 2.0, does it still look like something we should recertify, something we should commit to at this point? So
Sure.
your response.
Very valid question, right? Is it worth all the time that we're going to put into and worth the updates necessary? The MEDC helped to do the phase 1 environmental testing as well as a market study for the house at Village Square. That is the only site that we have listed on the MEDC's RRC site. We were using that to attract potential developers, and I think we've got ourselves to a pretty successful state, knowing that the township is 30% wetland, a third an area that we don't want to develop. We only have about 40% to develop. How much of that is already developed? MEDC could be a very good partner. We are a redevelopment ready community, right? We have an entire brownfield. I cannot, in the year I've been here, I cannot imagine how many sites I've run into that used to be a dry cleaner or a gas station. And you don't know until you basically pop open the hood, and once you do, now the costs are exacerbated. I would say it's well worth our time. Much of the things on the requirements are things we're going to do, like an update to our master plan, updated economic development strategy, updated communications plans. This program from MEDC standpoint is a way to market Michigan as efficient communities, no matter where you go. If you're a developer in the state, that you're going to have a similar experience being able to get your project to approval. So I think it's great for us. I think it's good marketing for us, and I think many of the elements we were going to achieve anyway.
Could I get Mr. Schmidt's?
I didn't see him, sorry.
Director Schmidt's.
So, yes, I think it's certainly worth our time, and I have 2 reasons for that. I am someone who is not afraid of change and always want to be reviewing process and procedures to make things as easy as possible, because I hate hearing the argument that things cost more because development takes time. I think in the Midwest specifically, that shouldn't be an excuse anywhere. That's a coastal issue for communities that have massive development pressures beyond anything we see. The second part, and I will say this, I've said this was part of the justification I used in the city of Howell when we got certified. The MEDC is slowly but inexorably moving towards tying incentives to RRC certification. There will be a time where the MED says if you're not RRC certified, you will not get incentives from us. It started with grant programs. We were a low to moderate income community in Howell, and it started with you got bonus points in your grant review, and then it went to you had to be RSC certified to get into sort of the first round. There will be a point at which they push this as a requirement. And so staying on top of it, especially in the backdrop that Director Clark mentioned of us moving from a greenfield to a brownfield community where we're going to have tougher and tougher sites that we're looking at, is important.
Trustee Jackson.
I appreciate those comments, and I will continue to support working for recertification. I would note that what is actually in RCC 2.0 is a lot of what you find built into master plans anyway, you know, and annual reviews and annual updates and all those kinds of things, which, as I think both of you mentioned, we have been moving towards in our planning and the development anyway. But I will note that there is at least one element of 2.0 that I don't like, and I think we need further discussions. You may know me well enough to know which one it is, but it is a section that requires, that mandates that we make a particular kind of zoning change or not bother trying to be recertified. So I'm open to further discussion on that issue, but note that I'm a little leery.
I can say on that, if it is the change I'm thinking of, we did have a lengthy discussion with our CAT team representatives about meeting recertification status and certain communities having to make zoning changes to do so. They said that they do not remove necessarily your status, but that you just are inactive. And so if we fall into an inactive status with MEDC, we would not be able to capture those incentives like we would for a major redevelopment project like in Hazlet Village or Okemos.
Okay, but we do have 2 years to...
We do have 2 years to discuss
to
that.
commit
Yes.
or not.
Yes,
Okay.
we do.
All set?
I'm done.
Thank you, Trustee Jackson. Director Clark, could you just overview for the board what the zoning change requirement is under RRC now?
If it's the one I'm thinking of, it's a mixed use and multiple family unit dwellings by right. Meridian Township does not allow multiple commercial dwelling units, I think, by right in many of our places, and mixed use, multiple family mixed use by right in our ordinance.
Would it be permissible if the township did it by overlay district? So that it's not a use by, or well, it's certainly going to be by zoning. Could it be further constrained and still meet RRC qualifications?
I think that we're going to have to get creative. Fundamentally, an overlay is a rezoning, and that's not a by right request. And if they want to get technical with us, that's what they're going to say. I'm still tossing around the ideas now of how to handle this now that we've gotten out of the MUPUD update and gotten that behind us, now thinking the next, and really it is a good sort of next step to start thinking about. What is the next thing? And I've talked about this before, we did neo-traditional and we've done form-based code, and we've done complete streets. What is the next thing? What is the farther out development regulation that maybe would be successful here? And I think we're going to have to get creative to meet at least one, if not two, of the standards in this district.
Okay.
Or in this report.
I want to reread their language too, because they generally specify, like I can only remember the communication one off the top of my head, but some of the changes are very little, like they would like to see things integrated as plans together and then and put together. So I want to check the language. But if I remember correctly, our mixed use does not just allow multifamily unit dwellings, and those are the projects I support. We've even tried to take them a concept plan for redevelopment at Hazlet that didn't include a vertical mix, and they pretty much just said, forget about it.
Okay. Other board members, thoughts, questions on RRC recertification? Trustee Wazinski.
I appreciate Director Schmidt saying that we're moving in this direction anyway, so it only makes sense that we're going to be required to do this to benefit, so putting the time, I think, will be worth it, and I could support that.
Other board members, this is our opportunity to weigh in early in the process, before the train leaves the station. Trustee Jackson.
So the point here was to introduce the process to us, and are we required to recommend that you move forward or not, or?
Tonight, you do not need to take any action. The brief is specifically written to the Township Board. You are, the final authorizing body on any of the changes that are necessary. And as you saw, Tim and I just talked about it, and we did not want any of it to be a surprise, especially considering mixed use by right and multifamily by right and mixed use designations. Wanted you to have some time to think about it and weigh the options of the RRC program.
Okay.
So I guess for my final comment on this, I didn't see that zoning thing, so I'm not quite sure use by right to what extent, but I do think that'll be something that we need to be extra mindful of. I mean, the community, while we have core areas, the community also is very leery of apartment buildings, right? So that's a tricky one. But I do think RRC is important. We don't get as many tools as core communities and cities, unfortunately, but that could change too. I was talking to Bob Trezise at LEAP and in my day job capacity, and I was actually just floating an idea that I had by him for the state's transformational brownfield program that's relatively new. We were extending the sunset just recently in the legislature, and I said, what if we thought outside the box for mall communities, right? And somehow created a new definition where mall communities could access a core community tool like this. And just for everyone's edification, a core community, there's a definition in law, and area median income is a component of it. And so really we miss it on affluency, and we might also miss it on township status. I don't think charter townships are, no, they are allowed, but it's even more restrictive than city on the definition. And so we were just kind of brainstorming, what if mall communities can have access to that tool if they attracted development like twice the scale of what core communities are doing, right? Like for a transformational brownfield program to capture sales and income tax, you're only looking at like a $25 million project under state law in a community of our size based on our population threshold. So we can attract $60 million projects. We did it with Okemos Elevation. Pine Village is 45 million. I mean, so it's certainly possible that could change, as I think malls will really be the driving force as they decline. So RRC could be, the tools behind it could evolve as suburban communities evolve. So I think there's a lot of merit to it. And I know Marcia Madel, when she was on the EDC, talked about this at length, and I think she had left our EDC by the time we finally adopted this. But this was something that Marcia talked about at length for many years, and so I was excited when Director Buck undertook it. Not seeing any other comments at the moment. All right. Well, thank you, Director Clark. We appreciate your time, and Director Schmidt. And now we are on to our final discussion item of the evening, 13B, and we have Chief Hamill with us to give us an update on the township's emergency plan update. And you've been before us on this before. We look forward to the update. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all for allowing me to speak tonight. This is just an update. Remember back in 2020, we kind of redid the plan based on the act that kind of dictates how it's formatted. This is just an update with really name changes, succession planning, and who fills in a role for different. I think there's 6 changes that were made over the year, and that's really the update. And just need your approval, and then we'll get signatures and get it over to the county, so we have a plan on over there in case there is an emergency. Then we can potentially be in line for money if there ever is any.
Thank you, Chief. Questions or comments from board members on the technical update to the emergency plan? Clerk Guthrie.
Is there a deadline for when this needs to be submitted?
No, it's just an annual update. Basically how it works is we're required to have one on file annually. So if there's a disaster in the area where there's potentially a declaration, we go through Ingham County. If we don't have a plan, an updated plan annually, we probably aren't in line for any money. Now, they might let us squeak by one time, but basically the rule of thumb is if you don't have a plan in place, an updated plan annually, you're not eligible for any recovery.
In light of the webinar I attended today in regards to emergency plans on Election Day, and I mentioned it briefly to Manager Walsh today. I haven't mentioned that I wanted to sit down with you and Chief Plaga and him to discuss how we should be better prepared and have an emergency plan for Election Day. So I don't know if that would be, I'm all in favor of what I see in front of me today, but that's a discussion that I would like to have in the future, and make sure that we have our safety measures in place if, God forbid, anything, were to happen. So I just want to plant that in your head, because I do see that as absent from this, and it's not something that I thought about until I had that webinar this afternoon. I mean, I've thought about security, obviously, on Election Day, but as part of a plan, I hadn't thought about it until I attend that webinar late this afternoon, so.
Okay. Yeah, unless it's a specific requirement that you have to have a plan. The way I look at it, it's a special event planning where the day of your election or prior to, you plan up, and then you have an operation plan on, all your facilities, if you have security issues or, fire, medical, things like that. And
so that's not something that would be in this kind of thing. It would be like a separate, okay, thank
Correct.
you for that. I
You're
appreciate
welcome.
that.
Thank you, Clerk Guthrie. Other questions from the board? So the update is largely procedural. Is there any interest in adopting this evening, or do we want to have it brought back in February? Clerk Guthrie?
I would agree with adopting it this evening.
Would someone like to make a motion to suspend our rules?
I'll make a motion to suspend the rules so that we can adopt the emergency operations plan as submitted by Chief Hamill.
Support. Moved by Clerk Guthrie, supported by Treasurer DeShane. Let's take we just need a voice vote on suspending the rules. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Now is there a motion to adopt the Township Emergency Plan update as presented in the board packet? Moved by Trustee Jackson and supported by Clerk Guthrie. It's moved and seconded. And we'll take a record roll call vote on adoption of the emergency plan update. Clerk Guthrie, please feel free to call the roll when you have a moment.
Trustee Sunland?
Yes.
Trustee Wazinski?
Yes.
Clerk Guthrie votes yes. Treasurer DeShane?
Yes.
Trustee Jackson?
Yes.
Supervisor Pro Tem Opsimer?
Yes.
Motion
Thank you.
carries 6-0.
Thank you
all.
Clerk Guthrie.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Chief. We appreciate your time and your patience with us this evening. That concludes our discussion items for the evening. We are now on to comments from the public. We have no members of the public present. Stephen, are we opening the virtual lines at all for?
You could, but you have no one in the Zoom meeting at this time.
We have no one in the Zoom meeting. We are now on to item 15, other matters and board member comments. Does anybody have any matters or closing comments? Treasurer DeShane.
One quick one. On Friday, February 4th, There will be a special opening of the Autism Museum at the Meridian Mall. It is, many of us have met, talked with Xavier DeGroat. I know that Trustee Opsimer has been a particular mentor and friend of his over the years. He came to speak to me and invited me to it. It's going to be at the mall. Mr. DeGroat is a very interesting, passionate man about autism awareness and enabling our residents who have autism to become productive members of society and make a contribution and recognize the contribution that many have already made. So if you're free on the 4th, it'll be at 6 p.m. at the mall. I believe it's in the wing where near launch.
Yeah.
Correct? Yes. So it should be an exciting thing. It's a new business for the mall and a fantastic foundation. I look forward to supporting them.
Thank you. Wonderful announcement, Treasurer DeShane. And I would just note that Chief Plaga has also been very supportive of Mr. DeGroat throughout the years, and we appreciate that. Any other closing board member comments? Do not see any. All right, then we will look to a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor? Aye. We are adjourned.
1 minute to spare. Good job. Doing 3 hours. We've never had this many action items before.
What's that?
We've never had this many action items before on the board meeting.
That was my goal, was 9 o'clock. We met it. I didn't think we were going to make it.
After 9, everyone's mind. Well, mine was shot to start off with tonight, so it wasn't a good start.
I didn't eat lunch today. Never stay at the house.
I haven't been hot since July.